Chapter 8:17. When Lin Muyu brought the remnants of the Devil clan back to Zhongnan City, it was already close to noon. It was snowing heavily. Tang Xiaoxi led the elite cavalry of the Longdan army camp in Zhongnan City to welcome them. They met on the snowy plains 20 miles away from the city. Seeing Lin Muyu return safely, Tang Xiaoxi was very gratified. However, when Tang Xiaoxi's gaze fell on Qianfeng was still somewhat uneasy and embarrassed. The defeated general, Qianfeng, greets your highness she. He bowed respectfully, using the etiquette of the Devil clan towards the princess. No need to be so polite. I'm not Feng Yuan's daughter. A faint smile hung on Tang Xiaoxi's face as she said. Furthermore, Feng Yuan has always treated me like a daughter. All you want is the demonic energy in my body. Qianfeng was a little surprised. Princess Shi, do you still hold a grudge against the God clan for what they did to you? I will never forget. Tang Xiaoxi turned around and mounted the horse. Her red cloak swirled in the flying snow. She turned around and looked deeply at Qianfeng. She said, if it wasn't for your sacred teacher in Yaoji, I wouldn't have killed Xiaoyin. I will never forget this hatred for the rest of my life. Qianfeng, the alliance between the humans and the Devil clan is just Mu's idea. I respect Emperor Qin's wish, but it doesn't mean I don't hate the Devil clan. Qianfeng laughed self-deprecatingly. That's fine. I am the marshal of the God clan. Now that His Majesty and the two princesses are dead with their heads missing, it's not too much for you to vent all your hatred on me, Qianfeng. Lin Muyu walked over holding the reins of the warhorse, and reached out to press on Tang Xiaoxi's leg on the horse's back. She said, Xiaoxi, don't say any more. Times have changed. It's not fair to put the blame on Qianfeng. Tang Xiaoxi nodded and said softly, okay, I understand. Lin Muyu then looked at Qianfeng and said, the heads of Feng Yuan, Feng Jing, and Feng Ning, were sent to Winterfrost City by the Empire of Tianji as a gift. I have ordered a grand funeral for them, as the Emperor of the Qin Empire. Really? Qianfeng's body trembled subconsciously as he said, thank you, Your Highness. After everything has settled down, can I pay my respects to His Majesty and the two princesses? That's your freedom. Lin Muyu exhaled and said, everyone has been walking for a whole night. Let's go to Zhongnan City and eat something hot. Otherwise, I'm afraid many people will get sick. Okay. Tang Xiaoxi said, Mu, are you really going to allow these demons to enter Zhongnan City? Her meaning was self-evident. 3 months ago, the demons were still fighting with the Empire in the 8 Wastelands, and they were both mortal enemies. But now the two armies were going to coexist peacefully. Perhaps many people would not accept this fact. Xiaoxi, what do you think? Lin Muyu asked. Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips. The Longdan army camp and the Zhongnan family's army have fought many times, and there has been a deep hatred between them. If they are allowed to enter Zhongnan City, I'm afraid there will inevitably be friction. I think it's better to let Qianfeng lead the demon army to camp in a small town outside the city. There are enough houses there, and food can be transported from Zhongnan City. What does Marshal Qianfeng think? Lin Muyu asked. Qianfeng's expression was calm. Your Highness can call me Qianfeng. The God race has suffered a crushing defeat, and I'm no longer a marshal. As for the encampment, it's up to Your Highness to arrange. Don't worry. Lin Muyu patted his shoulder and said, your God race will rise again. Let's get through this period of time first. Moreover, I'm afraid we won't be able to stay in Zhongnan City for too long. Why? Tang Xiaoxi asked in astonishment. Lin Muyu's gaze turned towards the northern snowy region, and with a trace of helplessness and sorrow, she said, Zhongnan City is located on the 8 Wastelands, and to the north of the 8 Wastelands is the snowy region. However, there is simply no place to defend. The few insignificant passes are only a few meters high. If we stubbornly defend the 8 Wastelands, our losses will be very heavy. Then Mu, what do you mean? Prepare to retreat to the Tongtian Gorge. Qianfeng was shocked. Your Highness, are you going to give such a large 8 Wastelands to the Tianji Empire? We have no other choice. Lin Muyu brushed the snow on her shoulder, held Taksha's reins and said, the Longdan army camp can't suffer meaningless losses. In the battle last night, Wei Chou must have lost a lot of people, right? Tang Xiaoxi was a little sad and said, in order to save these people of the devil race, more than 13,000 people of the Longdan army camp died in the snowy region since last night. More than half of the more than 6,000 people who came back were injured. Even Wei Chou was seriously injured, and is now resting in Zhongnan City. Only one night, and our casualty barracks and medicine are already not enough. Ah! Lin Muyu felt a pain in her heart and clenched her fists. Qianfeng frowned and said, it's my fault to let the Longdan army camp suffer such a loss. Your Highness, please rest assured. The Tianji Empire killed my whole family, but as long as I, Qianfeng, am still alive, I will definitely fight with the Tianji Empire to the end. Well, save your strength first. Let's go. Lin Muyu turned over and mounted the horse, and said, someone send more scouts to find out the situation of the Longji army camp. In addition, send more scouts to investigate the coastal area. Yes. The wind and snow fluttered, and the troops walked in the direction of Zhongnan City. Zhongnan City, this ancient city of thousands of years, had mottled walls. It was like an old man standing at the northern border of the mainland. When a strong enemy came, this old man seemed so vulnerable, and could not stop the attack of the iron hooves of Zhongnan City. Qianfeng's troops went into the small town to rest. Although it was just a small town, it was like heaven for the devil race who had been struggling at death's door for several months. To be able to drink a mouthful of hot water and eat a fragrant steamed bun was such a luxury for them. Even the face of Marshal Qianfeng was very ugly, obviously because of the lack of nutrition. Walking on the main street of Zhongnan City, the hooves of the horses stepped on the thick snow, and the sound of rustling could be heard. Is the Dragon Imperial battle armor really not afraid of the magic crystal cannons? Tang Xiaoxi thought for a long time, and finally could not help but ask. Lin Muyu nodded. Yes, Marshal Qianfeng can prove this. Qianfeng's face was gloomy, and said, the Dragon Imperial battle armor seems to be the natural nemesis of the magic crystal. We sent 500 winged clan brothers to launch a suicide attack, but we did not receive even the slightest effect. They used their lives to prove that the Dragon Imperial battle armor can restrain the magic crystal. It's not just them, Tang Xiaoxi said in a calm voice. There are also more than 10,000 soldiers from the Longdan army camp who died for the country. They were also stained with blood on the battlefield because of the power of the Dragon Imperial battle armor. Qianfeng was a little silent, and after a few seconds he said lightly, I'm sorry. Lin Muyu felt very uncomfortable in her heart. Tang Xiaoxi's hatred for the demon race was far deeper than she thought. In this battle, the Longdan army camp lost more than 10,000 elite soldiers because of the demon race. This was also a heavy blow to the Imperial army. But Lin Muyu was very clear in her heart that she must reconcile this contradiction. Otherwise it will lead to a big disaster in the future. Xiaoxi, the demon race, is also the victim. He looked at Tang Xiaoxi beside him and said softly, think about it. The tens of thousands of soldiers of the Longji Corps cooperated with the Tianji Dragon Riders to cross the northern glacial land bridge for a surprise attack, and coincidentally, the demon race's army encountered them in the north. In fact, it was the demon race who blocked this knife for our Qin Empire. In a sense, we have to thank the demon race for their sacrifice. Tang Xiaoxi opened her small mouth in shock and murmured. Lin Muyu's words woke her up from her dream and made her change her view in an instant. Qianfeng's voice was very bitter. It's a pity that the price of this sacrifice is the lives of our Majesty and the two princes. Ning is my friend, I won't let her die in vain. Tang Xiaoxi's pair of beautiful eyes looked at the distant sky, clenched her pink fist, and a faint flame lingered around her body. The Longji Corps killed Ning, or I will definitely settle this debt with them. A debt of blood must be paid with blood. Yes, a debt of blood must be paid with blood. Qianfeng gritted his teeth. Lin Muyu was silent. What he was thinking about was when to retreat. They definitely couldn't stay in Zhongnan City. Once the main force of the Tianji Empire crossed the sea, they would be able to encircle Zhongnan City in the blink of an eye. At that time it would be difficult to leave. At this time they had already arrived at the city lord's mansion in Zhongnan City. Wei Chao's shoulder was wrapped with gauze, and he walked out with the help of several guards. Wei Chou. Lin Muyu greeted him. Wei Chou's legs softened, and he knelt on the ground and tears flowed down. Your Highness, I am incompetent, and caused the death of more than 10,000 brothers in the Longden army camp. And I can't even recover their bodies. This is all my fault, Wei Chou. Behind him, a group of senior generals in the Longden army camp knelt together. Basically, all of them were injured and they looked very embarrassed. Lin Muyu couldn't remember how long it had been since the Longden army camp had suffered such a defeat. Since the Empire developed the magic crystal cannon, the Longden army camp began to win every battle, but the battle last night made everyone's liver tremble. The absolute strength gap almost completely destroyed their confidence and morale. The next priority seemed to be how to rebuild the morale, not how to retreat. Wei Chou, get up. Lin Muyu turned over and dismounted from the horse, helped Wei Chou up and said, the soldiers who died in the battle are the warriors of the Empire. They died for the Empire, and their names will be recorded in the National Monument Forest forever. Get up, the ground is cold. Thank you, Your Highness. Wei Chou wiped his tears and said, Your Highness, they are too strong. I know. Go in and eat first. Yes. Someone write a letter and send it back to Eastern Capital. Inform Prince Xian and Prince Zhong that the Dragon Imperial Battle Spiral can completely defend against the magic crystal cannon. Let them make early preparations. Yes. After entering the hall, a few tables of food were already laid out, but there was only food and no wine. The Longden army camp suffered a crushing defeat, and no one had the mood to drink today. They also couldn't taste the taste of good wine. Qianfeng sat beside Lin Muyu, looking at the table of delicious food and feeling extremely bitter. Eat tasteless. However, his body needed to replenish nutrients, so Qianfeng ate a lot. This caused quite a number of captaincy in the Longden army camp to cast him looks of disdain. Qianfeng only lowered his head to eat, swallowing in big mouthfuls as if he was swallowing his hatred and humiliation together. Chapter 8:18. On Dragon-Shaped Island, the fog of early spring lingered on the sea, causing one's field of vision to be no more than 50 meters. After many years of operation, numerous artificial islands and reefs were buried along the coast of Dragon-Shaped Island to prevent warships from docking from any direction. There was a temporary sentry post every 100 meters on the coast, and a temporary camp every 1 kilometer. Early in the morning, the rain and fog fell from the sky. Spring seemed to have come earlier on the island. Many Iha Nation soldiers had already taken off their armor. They surrounded a huge rock and shouted the number of the dice loudly. Their faces were flushed. They were gambling on nothing else but the 3 opportunities to have fun every month. In order to stabilize the army's morale, young Master Qin Huan had set a new rule for female soldiers. Every 100 soldiers would have 1 female soldier, but each soldier could only enjoy the female soldier 3 times a month. Therefore, the chips these soldiers used to gamble in their spare time were not Jinin dollars, but the opportunities to enjoy the female soldier. Leopard! Leopard! An old soldier with 2 silver stars on his shoulder shouted loudly. He was a centurion, but he looked to be at least 50 years old. When he picked up the cup made of bamboo, there were indeed 3 ones on the dice. The old centurion was instantly ecstatic. He was so happy that the veins on his face were bulging. Ha ha ha, Zhang-san Early Hosey, your 3 chances this month are all mine. Ha ha ha, are you convinced? The lean soldier grinned in disappointment. 3 times in a row. I don't know if it's real. They might have done something. I say, Geezer Wang, you have to take it easy. Can you take 21 chances to have a big fight in a month? Don't sprain your old waist. I heard that there was an old guy in the vanguard who died on the female soldier's belly not long ago. The centurion raised his hand. Brat, you dare to curse me? I'll make you pay for it. However, Li Hosey laughed loudly and ran away as fast as he could. Where are you going, brat? Don't leave your post without permission. Otherwise, if Marshal Ding catches you, he'll give you 100 military lashes. I'm not leaving. I'm going to pee. Mpha lazy donkey is full of shit and urine. Go, come back quickly. Monkey Lee lifted his pants and ran straight to the shore. Looking at the fog from afar, there was a patch of reeds on the shore. He jumped into the reeds and peed while humming a song from Iha country. Big girl, fair and fair, with her two asterisk raised, calling me brother. You're so naughty. I said I don't want you, but you still came. If you come in January, it will be shangshi. If you come in February, it will be steamed with flour cakes. Little sister, why haven't you come yet? Big brother will wait for you. Before he finished singing, a black shadow suddenly attacked from above the reeds. Pooh! An arrow pierced through his throat and blood splashed 10 meters away. Li Houzi retreated a few steps. His face was full of confusion. His throat was completely pierced through. After the arrow pierced through his throat, it shot straight into the rocks behind him. The feathers were buzzing and trembling. What kind of powerful arm strength was needed to shoot such a powerful arrow? Monkey Lee! A soldier walked over and took off his pants with his eyes squinted. Just as he was about to urinate, he saw the corpse lying on the ground in front of him. His body suddenly trembled and his face turned pale. Quick! Help! Li Houzi is dead. Monkey Lee is dead. The soldiers who were gambling in the camp on the shore rushed over quickly. Each of them put on their armor as if they were facing a formidable enemy. However, it seemed that they found nothing except Monkey Lee's corpse. Who killed Monkey Lee? The old centurion held the iron spear and said, "Damn it! Doesn't he know that Monkey Lee's sister is the concubine of His Royal Highness Qin Huan? He's courting death. Sir, listen. There's a sound on the sea." "What sound? Why can't I hear it?" "Listen carefully." The centurion frowned. The surroundings were silent. The sound of the tide came from the sea. At the same time, there seemed to be some rhythmic sounds. It was the sound of paddling. The fog is too thick. Is there someone on the sea? I don't know. What should we do now? Light the beacon fire. Yes. A soldier lit a torch and went straight to a beacon tower not far away. However, he stood still before he came to the side of the beacon tower. What's wrong, Zhang San? Are you possessed? The centurion asked impatiently. Zhang San stared straight at the sky above his head. There was a person. That's right. The person was standing on the beacon tower. He was barehanded, but he was wearing a suit of refined armor. Above him was a huge shadow. It was a giant beast that was hovering in the sky, a dragon. Zhang San, couldn't even speak a complete sentence. Suddenly, he began to bleed from his 7 orifices. A powerful domain aura that almost made his heart stop beating descended. In the blink of an eye, Zhang San spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. He died without a complete corpse. Oh my God, what's going on? The centurion was shocked. At this moment, the sound from the shore became louder and louder. There was an endless pung 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 sound. It was the sound of ships hitting the artificial reefs. Following that, extremely dense arrows were shot from the sea. Screams were heard one after another. In the blink of an eye, half of the 100 soldiers in the temporary camp were killed. They didn't even see the traces of their opponents. Raise your shields and defend. The centurion shouted loudly. A group of soldiers picked up their shields from the ground and formed a shield formation. They curled their bodies behind the shields and raised their spears to meet the enemy solemnly. There were no weak soldiers under a strong general. The army brought by Ding Shi and Long Qianlin was destined to be strong. But this time, the opponent was far beyond their imagination. A huge creature descended from the sky with a whistling sound. It was a fire dragon. Its entire body was covered in red scales. On the dragon's back was a dragon knight in fiery red armor. Its cold eyes were filled with the desire to kill. It's over. This was the old centurion's last sentence. Roar. The fire dragon raised its neck. Flames surged in its throat. The next moment, it lowered its head and poured the dragon flames on the crowd. The high-temperature dragon flames were terrifying. They almost instantly melted the shields of the Iha nation soldiers. They were burned to ashes along with their armor and weapons. In the blink of an eye, the temporary camp had been cleared. Lord Hanshu. A shout came from a warship in the distance. They've buried submerged reefs at the edge of the coast. Many of our warships have already hit the reefs. What should we do? The dragon knight in the sky was Hanshu. He smiled coldly. What's there to fear about a mere submerged reef? Get out of the way. I'll do it. Swoosh. A figure shot down from the dragon's back. Honshu's entire body was filled with godly power. A heavy punch descended from the sky. The space distorted. Bang. A shockwave erupted. Instantly, the surface of the water trembled. Countless water droplets condensed on the surface of the water and swayed. The pulsating impact spread out in the seawater. The submerged reefs hidden at the bottom of the water were all shattered. Heaven-shattering fist. Honshu's proud technique quickly won a round of cheers. The warships began to dock. After the decks were lowered, the cavalry and infantry disembarked. In the blink of an eye, an army was formed on the dragon-shaped island. At the same time, the huge dragon circled in the sky, roaring incessantly. Honshu returned to the dragon's back. He looked down at the army below and said, "When will the marshal's warship arrive?" "In the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn." "Good. Quickly clean up the surrounding battlefield. Remove all the Iha Nation soldiers. This dragon-shaped island will be the first territory our Blackstone Empire will conquer in the Shattered Cauldron realm. In addition, send envoys to the capital of the Iha Nation. Tell that old fellow Qin Yi that our marshal wants to see him. If he agrees to surrender, we might let him live. Otherwise, we will raze this dragon-shaped island to the ground." Yes. At dusk, purple light shot up into the sky from the dragon-shaped island. The magic crystal cannons were huge cannons developed from the intelligence obtained from the Empire's territory. Although the Iha Nation's magic crystal cannons were slightly crude and not accurate enough, their power was not much inferior. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The shockwave from the magic crystal cannons swept back to the army, forcing some of the weaker soldiers to retreat. Inside the trenches, Dingshi was dressed in golden armor. He held his saber horizontally and looked at the sky with an ashen face. That's right. Huge dragons were slowly rising from the ground where the magic crystal cannons had just ravaged. Each dragon was surrounded by a blue cyclone of different shades. It was the Dragon Imperial Battle Cyclone. They aren't afraid of the magic crystal cannons. Dingshi's voice was trembling. What do we do, Commander Ding? The commander-level battle general at the side had a livid expression. The Darkstone Empire's army is extremely powerful. Although their numbers might not be much greater than ours, they have the Darkstone Dragon Riders while we have nothing. How are we supposed to fight this battle? We don't have a choice. Dingshi waved his flag and said in a low voice, "Send out cavalry to attack their formation. Use spears and kill as many as you can. The Iha Nation won't just sit and wait for death." Yes. The sounds of killing filled the air. The countless cavalry that the Iha Nation had painstakingly gathered on the island charged at the enemy. However, under the roar of the huge dragons, the fate of these cavalry seemed to have been decided. Ha ha ha. Are they here to die? In the sky, Honshu laughed arrogantly. Everyone says that Dingshi is a famous general, but it seems like he's just SOSO. Then let this old man end the legend of this famous general today. Buzz. He landed and punched the ground, causing the space around him to crack. Countless Iha Nation cavalry and their horses were torn to shreds by the distorted space. The smell of blood quickly filled the air. The battle had become extremely intense. Kill. Throw. The Chiha Empire's cavaliers that were moving at high speed raised their javelins and tossed them out with a swoosh. The might of the javelins was shocking, and in just a single round, at least a few hundred cavaliers, infantrymen, and archers from the Darkstone Empire were buried on foreign soil. However, the number of spears was limited. Once they were used up, the Iha Nation army could only rely on swords and sabers to fight. The dragon cavalry circled in the sky. Dragon breath and sword chi crisscrossed the ground, causing the entire battlefield to become unbalanced. Chapter 819. At dusk, the Blackstone Empire's Ashen Flame Corps slowly retreated, giving the Iha Nation a chance to catch their breath. However, the dense number of corpses on the battlefield was like a gloomy cloud that shrouded everyone's hearts. In the main camp, "How's the situation?" Qini asked with an ashen face. Long Qianlin's face was full of smoke, but he couldn't care less. He cupped his fists and said, "Commander Ding blocked the Ashen Flame Corps' attack 5 times in a row. Their sudden arrival caught us off guard. Commander Ding has already done a pretty good job. Pretty good? Marquis Man Ning sneered. Marshal Long thinks too highly of Ding Shi. The casualty ratio between us and the enemy is as high as 1-5. We have to sacrifice 5 warriors in order to kill one of the enemy's men. Is this not bad? In my opinion, Ding Shi is really old. He's actually fighting such a powerful enemy head-on. He's simply courting death. Is that so? Long Qianlin raised his eyebrows. Marquis Sunset's words are so convincing. Why don't you personally go into battle with the Blackstone Empire's army? I'd like to see how Marquis Sunset will turn the tide and save the Iha nation from the edge of the cliff. You. The fat on Man Ning's face trembled slightly. Commander Long's words are too sharp and unkind. Long Qianlin sneered. Ding Shi is bathing in blood at the front, but someone is deliberately slandering him from the back. I just can't stand it. As a soldier, I definitely won't tolerate this. Good, very good of you. Man Ning put on a fake smile and didn't say anything else. Ding Shi was Long Qianlin's only military competitor in the Iha nation. Man Ning had thought that suppressing Ding Shi would get Long Qianlin's help. Who would have thought that this would be the result? Long Qianlin actually repeatedly spoke up for Ding Shi. These soldiers were really incomprehensible. Stop arguing. Qini placed the teacup heavily on the table, and his aged face was covered in worry as he said, "Let's talk about what we should do now. The Darkstone Empire's army is pressing down on our borders. What should we do?" Qin Huan cupped his fists. "Royal Father, the Blackstone Empire came from afar just to conquer. What they need is land and submission. Everything in the Shattered Cauldron realm will eventually be conquered by the Celestial Pole continent, be it us or the Qin Empire." "Huan, or what do you mean?" This child believes that there are 2 possible methods. The first is to negotiate peace with the Blackstone Empire. However, we must intimidate them with military might. Otherwise, it won't be a peace negotiation, but a surrender and submission. The second is to give up on Dragon-Shaped Island and head to the Empire's territory to seek help from the Empire. The second option is definitely not feasible. Qini shook his head. Back then, Iha country killed Qin Jin during the chaos in Lanyan City. Qin Jin is Lin Muyu's adoptive father. We're like a fishbone stuck in his throat. Lin Muyu will never tolerate us. Let's talk about the first method. Man Ning said. Marshal Ding fought the enemy at the front and lost 30,000 warriors of Iha country in less than a day. How much food and gold coins will we have to spend to exchange for these 30,000 warriors? In this way, even if we fight to the death and intimidate the enemy, I'm afraid that we'll only be left with a group of people with 1 foot in the grave. It'll be meaningless to the Blackstone Empire. Will they still negotiate peace? Qini muttered to himself. After a while he raised his head and asked, Marshal Long, what do you think? Long Qianlin was the pillar of Iha country. Qini knew that asking Long Qianlin when he couldn't make a decision wouldn't be wrong. Commander, Long Qianlin said respectfully, if we can fight, we might be able to win back our dignity. If we surrender without a fight, Iha country will become a vassal of the Blackstone Empire. I've long heard from the merchants from the Celestial Pole continent that the imperial family of the Blackstone Empire is cruel and heartless. The Emperor, Shi Yuan, doesn't even hesitate to use the blood essence of young boys and girls to cultivate. Furthermore, the Blackstone Empire keeps a large number of mercenaries, and the common people suffer unspeakably. If we surrender to such a cruel and heartless empire, what will happen to His Majesty? As he spoke, Long Qianlin put his hand on the hilt of the sword at his waist and said, His Majesty has 3 royal highnesses in addition to young Prince Qin Huan. The youngest is only 11 years old. Does His Majesty want to see his children become slaves and servants? Even the royal highnesses may become the exclusive toys of the Blackstone Empire's imperial family? Long Qianlin. Man Ning trembled with anger and pointed at Long Qianlin's nose. You're treacherous. How dare you say such arrogant words? Do you still have any commander in your eyes? Long Qianlin glanced at him coldly and didn't say anything. At this moment, the 2 old generals cupped their fists together. Commander Long's honest words are unpleasant to the ear. I hope Commander Long will consider them. Qini nodded and muttered to himself. The smoke from the incense burner lingered. After a long time, Qini raised his head. His eyes were slightly red as he said indifferently, I fully support Marshal Ding Shi. This battle concerns the future of Iha country. We must not show weakness. Commander is wise. Long Qianlin cupped his fists. Everyone expressed their agreement. Man Ning trembled with anger. A bunch of fools, a bunch of fools. All of you can leave. I want some peace and quiet. Qini waved his hand. Commander Long, stay. I have something to say to you. Yes. Everyone left, leaving Long Qianlin standing on the red carpet with his hand on the hilt of his sword. Commander Long. Qin Yi's voice was a little hoarse as he asked, is Iha country's destiny really over? God disposes, but man proposes. Long Qianlin didn't answer his question. He said, to achieve great things, one needs extraordinary courage and skill. Commander Long missed the opportunity to become a king, but he has been diligent and loved the people ever since he came to Dragon-Shaped Island. This is something that everyone can see. Now that Commander Long has won the hearts of the people, there is no need to hesitate anymore. Let's fight this battle. The winner will be remembered for generations to come. The loser will retreat bravely. Retreat bravely? Qin Yi was stunned. What does that mean? Long Qianlin smiled. It is time to plan for the future. Commander Long, what do you mean by that? Commander Long, there are currently around 300,000 Iha country troops on Dragon-Shaped Island. I have given Marshal Ding Shi a total of 150,000, which means that there are still 150,000 troops in my hands. What does Commander Long mean? It's like this. We have been forging warships for many years, but we have only built 1,000 warships. Based on the number of people each warship can carry, at most 150,000 people. Thus, even if we abandon Dragon-Shaped Island and retreat, we will not be able to take 300,000 soldiers with us. That means we can only leave behind 150,000 soldiers, sacrificing the rook to protect the general. You? Qin Yi was stunned. Commander Long, you want to leave Marshal Ding Shi and the 150,000 soldiers to fight alone on Dragon-Shaped Island? Yes. Long Qianlin's gaze was cold. Commander and young prince, please immediately lead our army to leave Dragon-Shaped Island. This subordinate has already prepared everything. We will head to the southern coast of the Soaring Sky province. There are no imperial troops there. Only by preserving enough troops will we have a future. Then what about Marshal Ding Shi and the 150,000 soldiers? Qin Yi slapped the table and stood up. Do you want me to abandon them? If not for them delaying the nearly 300,000 soldiers of the Blackstone Empire, we would not have had the possibility of retreating. Long Qianlin cupped his fists and said, Commander and young prince, please lead everyone away. This subordinate will lead the guards to the battlefield and defend against the enemy with Marshal Ding Shi. We will either return alive or die on the battlefield. This is the final destination of the two marshals of the Iha nation. This is also what Marshal Ding Shi and I want. Commander, please do not hesitate. Every minute and every second is extremely precious to us. Qin Yi's entire body trembled. Commander Long Yu. This subject deserves to die for his loyalty. Long Qianlin knelt on one knee and raised his head to look at the aged Qin Yi. When Long Qianlin was in dire straits, the Southern Protector King took him in. Since your highness has acknowledged me as your commander, how can Long Qianlin not repay you? Your highness, quickly leave. No matter what happens in the future, Long Qianlin will die without regrets. This is the last thing Ding Shi and I can do for the Iha nation. Qin Yi raised his head and tears streamed down his aged face. His trembling palm touched Long Qianlin's shoulder and said, If I, Qin Yi, had a son like Commander Long, I would die without regrets. It's just a pity. Your Highness, say no more. Time is precious. Long Qianlin stood up and turned to leave without looking back. His last words reverberated in the wind. It's not too late to repay the mistakes made in the past. If Qin Yi returns alive, this subordinate would rather see His Majesty submit to her and atone for the mistakes made in the past. As for this subject, I am not willing to die under the swords of the Blackstone Empire. Now that a powerful enemy has arrived, I, Long Qianlin, will die under the iron hooves of the Blackstone Empire without regrets. Qini stood in the tent and suddenly let out a sorrowful cry. In the land of exile, there were many huge iron chests lying in the wilderness. There were close to 100 of them, and each chest contained about 100 members of the banished army. Experts who were either radiated or cursed were hiding in the chests. Many of them stuck their heads out, wanting to see the situation outside. They seemed to be very impatient. There are still 10 minutes before the Wheel of Time points towards the celestial pole continent. Terralyn confidently puffed out her full chest and smiled. This is also the beginning of our banished angel squad's mission. As for which corner of the celestial pole continent we will be teleported to, that's hard to say. Dora sneered from afar. Lake frowned and said, Lord Xiyin, are you really going to bring all these dregs of the land of exile to the celestial pole continent? Xiyin nodded and said nothing. Then how are you going to send these huge chests? You should know that the direction of the Wheel of Time changes very quickly. You only have 15 minutes at most. That's my problem. Don't worry. Terralyn, when the time is up, immediately help me open a plane crack. The bigger the better. Do your best. Yes, Xiyin. 10 minutes later, Terralyn's expression turned cold. We're here. She let out a shrill cry and transformed into a level 6 blood-winged battle angel. A pair of beautiful blood wings spread out behind her, and she raised her sword and slashed towards the sky. Boom. The plane was forcibly torn apart, and a huge black hole appeared. Xiyin's voice was cold. Close all the chests and everyone close their eyes. Yes. With clanging sounds, all the chests were closed. Xiyin closed her eyes and said to Dora, Dory and the others, You guys go first. I'll catch up later. Although Dora was unwilling, she had no choice but to do so. She immediately led everyone through the plane. After the 9 banished angels left one after another, Xiyin opened her eyes. Immediately, a pair of beautiful starry eyes surrounded by golden flames appeared between heaven and earth. A pair of golden wings of light spread out behind her. Like a miracle, she gently lowered her palm. Immediately, nearly 100 chests trembled and flew away under an invisible force, projecting into the alternate space. All Xiyin could do was send them away. As for whether they could survive the erosion of the sands of time, that was their problem. Chapter 820. Tianji Province, Jiulong Harbor. It was the largest harbor in the entire Tianji Empire. At this moment, Jiulong Harbor was bustling with activity. There was an endless stream of horses and carriages on the shore, and people were waiting in the water. As long as an order was given, thousands of iron-skinned warships would cross the strait and head straight for the broken tripod world on the other side. The coolies roared to encourage themselves and moved heavy ballistae onto the warships. The troops of the Flowing Spirit Army stood on the shore and supervised the preparations for the voyage. At this moment, the ground suddenly trembled, and the sea was no longer calm. A buzzing sound came from the sky. What's wrong? A captaincy squinted at the sky and said, It's like an oracle. How many years has it been? Could it be that another oracle from the Western Divine Realm has come to our Tianji Empire? Whoosh, 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 balls of flames fell from the sky like meteorites, heading straight for Jiulong Harbor. Oh no. Captaincy hurriedly shouted, Sound the alarm. These flying meteorites are coming for us. Tell everyone to get out of the way quickly. However, it was too late. In less than 3 seconds, nearly 100 meteorites, wrapped in flames, crashed into the shore. Some landed on the shore, and some landed in the sea. Boom, boom, boom. The prepared warships were smashed into smithereens. Even the soldiers on the warships who were unable to dodge in time were turned into ashes in the raging flames. Boom, boom, boom. After the heavy blow, the sea suddenly sank by nearly 10 meters, sinking hundreds of warships with it. However, the surging tide in the distance was like a tsunami. In the blink of an eye, at least 200 warships were turned upside down under the huge waves. Cries and screams were heard, and the entire Jiulong Harbor was on fire. It was like purgatory on earth. Sizzle, sizzle, bolts of lightning flashed within the flames, bringing with them extremely pure light elemental energy. Within the flames, the figures that were surrounded by walls of light stood up, and pairs of blood-red wings spread out from their backs. There was no need to guess what they were. It's an angel. Captain C trembled all over. He didn't care about putting out the fire anymore. Kneeling on one knee, he said from afar, Tianfeng, the commander of the 9th Battalion of the Tianji Empire's Liuji Army, pays my respect to your excellency. A very pleasant female voice came from the raging flames. Put out the fire and save them. Waves of light element shockwaves came crashing down, and the invisible domain power could even suppress the flames. The 10 angels worked together, and in the blink of an eye, the raging fire on the harbor was extinguished. However, the overturned warships in the sea could only be hoisted up one by one. There was no shortcut. Amidst the clouds, a beautiful girl with closed eyes and a pair of golden wings unfurled from her back. She wore exquisite combat boots and the uniform and cloak of a battle angel. She walked over step by step, stunning Tianfeng. He gulped and said, Subordinate Tianfeng greets Lady Golden-Winged Battle Angel. The young girl did not open her eyes to look at him. Her long eyelashes were extremely beautiful. She was already so beautiful with her eyes closed. So how beautiful would she be when she opened her eyes? Tianfeng couldn't help but think to himself. He even hoped that she would open her eyes, but to his disappointment, this battle angel had no intention of opening her eyes. My name is Xiyin. The young girl said indifferently, I am the leader of the 10 exiled battle angels, Tianfeng. Where is this place? In the distance, a group of elite cavalry of the Liuji army had already arrived. Many of them even had their swords drawn. Tianfeng hurriedly raised his hand to signal the people behind him not to act rashly. He respectfully said to Xiyin, reporting to Lady Xiyin, this is the harbor of Jiulong City under the jurisdiction of the Tianji province. It is called Jiulong Port. We are currently transporting resources to prepare for war. May I know what order the Lord of the Western Divine Realm has? There is no order, Xiyin said. We are exiled angels. We are no longer a member of the Western Divine Realm. We will help you, but not in the name of the Western Divine Realm. Do you understand? Yes, your subordinate understands. At this moment, iron chests floated up from the seawater behind them. The doors of the chests opened, and ugly soldiers came out one after another. Some of them had a very strong aura, reaching the Holy King realm, and some had just entered the Divine Realm. Some were very weak, but they looked very capable. They were definitely the kind of people who killed without blinking an eye. Tianfeng was shocked. Archers, prepare to shoot. Wait. The corner of Xiyin's mouth curled up, and with a gentle smile she said, Don't be nervous, Lord Tianfeng. These people are my subordinates, and they will help you win this war. This? Yes, your subordinate understands. Tianfeng respectfully nodded. Amidst the lingering smoke, a pair of black wings spread open behind Dora, and she floated out. It is useless for us to talk here. Let's go and meet the emperor of the Tianji Empire, Baiming Yuan. He is the ruler of this country, and we should meet him first. Xiyin frowned slightly, but did not refute. She nodded and said, Okay. Tianfeng, where is Baiming Yuan? Bring us to him. Yes. Tianfeng respectfully nodded and ordered. Men, bring 10 warhorses to the battle angels. When Xiyin flipped over and mounted the warhorse, Terralyn could not help but be stunned. It seemed that Xiyin was very familiar with warhorses, and her identity was becoming more and more mysterious. However, Terralyn did not want to find out. After all, Xiyin had saved her life, and would not harm her. This guarantee between friends was enough. In the sea and on the shore, the metal chests kept on opening, and the banished land armies with all sorts of ridiculous weapons appeared. The soldiers of the Flowing Harmony army could not help but laugh when they saw them from afar. Some of them were holding meteor hammers, while others were hugging onto metal pipes. No one knew what they were, but the most ridiculous thing was that one of them was actually holding onto a metal hammer that looked like a toilet bowl. No one knew what it was used for. Baiming Yuan was not in the imperial capital, but in Nine Dragons City. Perhaps because it was close to Nine Dragons Port, it was suitable for the emperor to supervise. After a group of battle angels entered the city, they immediately attracted a lot of onlookers. Although Xiyin could not see them, She could hear the commoners' discussions. In front of them was Terilyn, and Terilyn was sitting on the horse holding the reins for her. Beside her was a group of cavalry sent by Tianfeng to protect her. There were more than 3,000 people, and this guard of honor was really big. Terilyn, Lake Zhou and the others had lived in the divine realm for a long time. Now that they had come to the mortal realm and seen such a lively city, they were naturally very happy. Everyone was talking and laughing, but when Terilyn looked back at Xiyin, she saw that her expression was incomparably calm, as if she could not hear anything. Xiyin seemed to never know how to smile. Terilyn's heart was secretly sour. No one knew how much suffering Xiyin had experienced. In the bottom of her heart, there were memories that others could not touch. Other than a polite smile, Xiyin did not have any other extra smile. Not long after, the procession slowly entered the palace of Nine Dragons City. The Emperor Baiming Yuan's palace was very magnificent, spanning nearly 10 miles. There were thousands of pavilions and terraces, and the palace was guarded like a forest. There were groups of palace maids. The Emperor of the mortal realm was really enjoying his life. Terilyn could not help but pout. No wonder some gods would rather cultivate in the celestial pole land than ascend to the divine realm. So that's why. Tianfeng smiled awkwardly. Miss Terilyn, these are just things that the Emperor of the mortal realm should have. It's not only the Western divine realm. His Majesty Baiming Yuan has made great efforts to govern. With less than 40% of the continent, he has the strongest power. This is enough to prove everything. I hope Miss Terilyn can put in a good word for the Tianji Empire when you return to the heavenly realm. If I will. Terilyn smiled faintly. In Tianfeng's mind, Terilyn was simply a supreme existence. It should be known that the Light Clan behind her was one of the 4 great clans of the Western Divine Realm. There were at least hundreds of god emperors. The hundreds of planes under their jurisdiction were also rich in resources. A mere celestial pole land was like a leek field in Terilyn's vegetable garden. She could harvest it whenever she wanted. This time, sending Terilyn, Xiyin, Dora, and the others to the mortal realm to help win this war seemed more like a trial. The Western Divine Realm only wanted these battle angels to gain more profound combat experience as soon as possible. This was also a kind of gilding. If they did not experience a planar war, perhaps these young gods would not be able to take charge of a huge clan, at least not yet. Tianfeng was well aware of this and naturally could not see through it. He just slowly entered the palace hall with the 10 battle angels. Before stepping into the palace hall, Xiyin had already frowned slightly. She felt a very tyrannical divine power that was much stronger than her. In addition, there were also a few god-king level power fluctuations that were not much inferior to her. Presumably, the strongest was Baiming Abyss, and the rest were powerhouses under his command. Xiyin, Dora, Terilyn, and the other 10 exiled battle angels, please have an audience. The guard on duty shouted loudly. Although Xiyin could not see, through the fluctuations of power, she had a better grasp of the surrounding terrain than people with sharp ears and eyes. She stepped over the threshold and walked in with a group of battle angels. They walked straight along the red carpet in the palace hall, passing through the officials, and arrived in front of Baiming Abyss. The Empire's emperor, Baiming Abyss, was wearing a dragon robe. He looked calm, and his cultivation was unfathomable. His eyes flickered with a deep light. After seeing the 10 battle angels enter the palace hall, he immediately stood up, cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Lower Realm Tianji Empire's Emperor, Baiming Abyss, greets the battle angels. Your Majesty, you don't have to be so courteous." Xiyin smiled faintly. "We came from the banished land to assist the celestial pole continent in accomplishing this grand undertaking, so Your Majesty, you don't have to be so courteous with us." "Thank you everyone and thank you Lord Ruler." Baiming Abyss looked at the sky with sincerity and said, "I wonder if the battle angels have been to the Celestial Empire and the Blackstone Empire?" "No." Xiyin shook her head. "That's great." A hint of joy appeared on Baiming Abyss's calm face. Chapter 8:21. To Baiming Yuan, the arrival of the 10 battle angels was of great significance. It was definitely not limited to the addition of 10 sacred martial king level experts. The greater significance lay in the families behind these people. He had never heard of Xiyin and Dora before, but he had long heard of the names of Terralin, Lake, Zhou Ximin Luofei, and the others. They were all heirs of the major families. Gaining their trust meant that the Tianji Empire had gained the trust of the major families in the Western Divine Realm. This was simply a great thing for the Tianji Empire. As long as the Tianji Empire was valued by the great clans and became the cradle for them to cultivate their talents, they would have countless treasures from the immortal realm to use, especially the Radiant Origin Stone. A single Radiant Origin Stone could create a Saint Martial King. This was not a joke. Thinking of this, Bai Mingyuan could not help but laugh. He said, "The Tianji Empire is the most powerful among the 3 empires in the Celestial Pole continent. Why don't you all stay in the Tianji Empire?" "Okay." Dora smiled. "Then we'll stay in the Tianji Empire and listen to His Majesty's orders." "Wait a minute." Xiyin nodded and said, "Dora, I think you've misunderstood the ruler's intentions. The 10 of us newly promoted battle angels didn't come to the Celestial Pole continent to listen to orders. Instead, we're here to assist. I'll be in charge of everything, and the other members of the Battle Angel team will also have to listen to my orders. Our team will be independent, and will not be restricted by anything." As she spoke, she raised her beautiful face and closed her eyes to look at Bai Mingyuan. She said, "Your Majesty, what do you think?" Dora trembled with anger, but she did not speak. After all, she was only the vice-captain. Bai Mingyuan smiled. "Miss Xiyin is the captain of the Battle Angel squad. Naturally, we'll listen to your arrangements. In addition, the Tianji Empire will do its best to satisfy all of Miss Xiyin's requests. If you need anything, just tell us. You don't have to be polite." "Okay, thank you, Your Majesty." Xiyin bowed in the Western Divine Realm manner and said with a smile, "Since Your Majesty has said so, then Xiyin will take the liberty to make some requests." "Okay, miss, please go ahead. First of all, I'll need His Majesty's token. That way, the Battle Angel squad's movements in the Tianji Empire will be very convenient." "This is a small matter. Men, bring me my Golden Emperor token." Bai Ming Abyss was very generous. A waiter quickly came over with a tray. It was a token made of pure gold that glowed with a golden light. The craftsmanship was very exquisite. Bai Mingyuan said, "There are only 2 Golden Emperor tokens in the entire Tianji Empire. One is with my younger brother, Marshal Bai Minghuan, and the other is this one. Please take good care of it, Miss Xiyin." With the Golden Emperor token, it's as if you're the emperor himself. You can command all the major provinces, government offices, and so on. You can also deploy the Imperial Army of 10,000 soldiers at any time. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Xiyin placed the king's golden token into her pocket and continued, "The Battle Angel squad only has a few members, so I still need an army. An army that will only obey my commands. I wonder if Your Majesty is willing to bestow it to me?" Bai Mingyuan narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, "This kind of army? I wonder how many people Miss Xiyin needs." 10,000. "Oh, 10,000. That's easy. Men, take out a battalion of 10,000 men from the Flowing Spirit Army, and have them follow Miss Xiyin. They will be ready to be deployed at any time." "Wait a minute," Xiyin replied. "Transferring 10,000 men from a battalion would easily cause a lot of trouble. How about this, Your Majesty? Can I request for Your Majesty to transfer 1,000 outstanding men from each of the 10,000 men battalions of the Flowing Spirit Army to me? I will appoint the Kiliarchs of these battalions. What does Your Majesty think?" "This. All right." Bai Mingyuan nodded his head. "I'll listen to Miss Xiyin." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Xiyin smiled and continued, "I have another request. Please speak. This way, I will have 20,000 men that I can deploy. When I came, I saw that your country's army was preparing warships to cross the sea. So I need a warship that can carry 20,000 men to be deployed at my command." "This," Bai Mingyuan muttered to himself. "Is it difficult?" "No, it can be done. Men, take out 100 medium-sized warships and a dragon-headed warship from the 9 dragons docked to be deployed by the Battle Angels." "Yes." Xiyin smiled and bowed once again. "Thank you, Your Majesty." "Then, tonight, I will hold a welcoming banquet for the battle angels in the palace. I hope that you will do me the honor of coming and temporarily stay in the Golden Dragon Inn next to the palace. The largest and best inn in Nine Dragons City is the Golden Dragon Inn. I hope that you will not feel shabby. Your Majesty is too polite. Terralyn smiled. Luo Fei also said, "Thank you, uncle." Luo Fei. Bai Mingyuan smiled like an elder. "How has your father been recently?" Luo Fei nodded. "Thanks to uncle's blessings, father's body is very good. He has recently broken through to the 97th heavenly passage." "Oh, that's really worth celebrating. Thank you, uncle." Bai Mingyuan had already walked down the steps and had the demeanor of an approachable emperor. "I've never seen Miss Dora before. May I know where you are from?" Dora respectfully said, "I come from a faraway and impoverished plain." "Oh, I see." Bai Mingyuan smiled. "Heroes don't ask about their background. Miss Dora being able to obtain the Battle Angel inheritance is enough to prove your talent and intelligence." Saying this, Bai Mingyuan looked at Xiyin and said, "Miss Xiyin, may I know where you are from?" "I come from the land of exile," Xiyin said lightly. "Ah." Bai Mingyuan was stunned. Terralyn saw that the emperor was a little embarrassed and said, "Xiyin is Lady Xiyan's sister." "Ah." This shock slowly appeared on Bai Mingyuan's face. "So you're Seraph Xiyan's sister. My apologies for not recognizing you." Terralyn smiled in satisfaction. She came from the Light Clan, and was used to such power struggles. Rather than saying which family Xiyin came from, it was better to directly bring up Xiyan. After all, Xiyan had long stepped into the 99th heavenly passage, and was the #1 person in the Western Divine Realm other than ruler Claude. Even the other Seraph, Eva, paled in comparison. For the past 10,000 years, Xiyan had fought everywhere, and united more than half of the Western Divine Realm starfields with her tyrannical power. This was an unparalleled achievement. Moreover, she was a gentle person, and had a good relationship with the leaders of the Western Divine Realm's major families. So in the Western Divine Realm, who wouldn't respect and fear Seraph Xiyan? In fact, Xiyin didn't even know that her sister was so powerful. But she remembered what Xiyan had said to her before she left. "Go and live your own life." So Xiyin had already made up her mind. This time, she wouldn't let herself be controlled by others. "Then we'll take our leave and go back to rest," Xiyin said respectfully. "All right, goodbye, Lady Xiyin." Dora didn't seem to want to leave. She said to Luo Fei, "Young Master Luo Fei, didn't you say you wanted to chat with His Majesty? I heard that the Tianji Empire's tea is very good. Can you stay and drink it?" Bai Mingyuan couldn't help but laugh. "Miss Dora is too polite. Then follow me to the rear hall." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Xiyin, Terralyn, and the others went to the post house, while Dora and Luo Fei stayed in the palace. Inside the rear hall, there were many palace maids serving them carefully. Clouds of mist lingered in the incense burner, and the fragrance assailed their nostrils. After entering the rear hall, Bai Mingyuan stopped smiling and dismissed the maids. He asked, "Luo Fei, do you have something to say?" Luo Fei stammered, "Actually, it's nothing." "Then why are you here?" Bai Mingyuan was puzzled. Dora smiled and reached into her interspatial bag. Suddenly, she took out a dazzling spear and asked, "Your Majesty, do you recognize this treasure?" "Fergus spear?" Bai Mingyuan hurriedly knelt on one knee and said, "It's the Fergus spear of Lord Juggernaut." "Miss Dora, why do you have it?" "It was given to me by Lord Juggernaut. He ordered me to do what is necessary when necessary." A hint of pride appeared in Dora's eyes. She said, "Lord Juggernaut doesn't fully trust Xiyin, so he gave it to me. Your Majesty, I believe you know how to do things right." Bai Mingyuan could not help but feel a chill in his heart when he saw the ambition and desire in Dora's eyes. Was this something a young girl should have? Obviously not. However, Bai Mingyuan had roamed the continent for 7,000 years, and had seen many clever people who were scheming and scheming. Thus he smiled and said, "This is a matter of the Western Divine Realm, and I'm just a god of the mortal world. Therefore, it's not convenient for me to meddle in the affairs of the Divine Realm. As for Xiyin, she's Lady Xiyan's younger sister. All the more, I won't do anything disrespectful to Miss Xiyin." Dora squinted her beautiful eyes. She thought to herself that this old fox was really cunning. She smiled and said, "Your Majesty, I'm not asking you to do anything disrespectful to Xiyin. I'm just discussing with you. Can I mobilize the army of the Tianji Empire with this spear?" This, Beiming Abyss smiled faintly and said, "Forgive me for being presumptuous, but most people probably don't recognize the Fergus spear. In fact, many people don't even know about the Sovereign Lord's existence. However, I don't have a third king medallion with me." "It's all right." Dora's lips curled up slightly. She said, "You can give the order directly." "What do you mean? I don't want an army made up of mortals. Humph, they can't even withstand a single blow. What I want is an army that can work for me and turn the situation around. Do you understand?" Furthermore, Dora had a sincere smile on her face. "As long as you help me, young Master Luo Fei will put in a good word for you when he returns to the Divine Realm. I heard that the Nia family has several radiant primordial stones in their collection. If your Majesty obtains one of them, perhaps you'll be one step closer to the 99 heavenly caves." Dora's palm was gently placed on Luo Fei's thigh. How could Bai Mingyuan not see it? He secretly felt a chill in his heart. This little vixen is really amazing. She's making use of all the advantages a woman has. "Then what army does Miss Dora want from the Tianji Empire?" Bai Mingyuan asked. "I don't want anything else." She stretched out a white scallion finger and said, "I want the Dragon Riders." Chapter 822. What? The Dragon Riders? Bai Mingyuan could no longer sit still. "I'm afraid that's very difficult. The Heavenly Jade Dragon Riders are under the direct command of Marshal Bai Mingyuan. Furthermore, more than half of the Empire's Dragon Riders are already in the Shattered Cauldron realm. In order to defend against the Celestial Empire's covetous eyes, we still need 50 Dragon Riders to guard the border. Furthermore, we also need Dragon Riders to protect the expedition at sea." "Is that so?" Dora's smile widened. She was so beautiful that it made one's heart flutter. She said, "When I came here, I heard the energy pulse of a dragon's breath coming from the side of the palace. There are at least 60 dragons there. Are you trying to tell me that these dragons are masterless, Your Majesty? Furthermore, I'm determined to get the Dragon Riders. If Your Majesty doesn't give it to me, I'll go to the Blackstone Empire or the Celestial Empire to ask for it. I believe that Shi Yuan and Chen Hai won't reject being the Lord Ruler's representative in the mortal realm. Am I right?" Bai Mingyuan couldn't help but sweat profusely. He had lived for 7,000 years, but it seemed like he still couldn't beat this little fairy in front of him. However, if Dora went to the other two nations, it would be very disadvantageous to him. After all, she was someone arranged by the Lord Ruler Claude. If she returned to the immortal realm, and said a few unpleasant words about him, the Heavenly Jade Empire might be doomed. When he thought of this, Bai Mingyuan's face turned purple. "Actually, I can give you some Dragon Riders, but not too many. How about this? I'll send 3 Dragon Riders to listen to Miss Dora's commands. What do you think?" "3 people?" Dora said coldly. "Are 3 even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth? I'm afraid that the moment Xiyin opens her blazing eyes, they'll all be reduced to ashes." "What blazing eyes? Why would Miss Xiyin kill the Dragon Riders?" Bai Mingyuan was dumbfounded. Although he had entered the immortal state long ago, he had spent most of his time in the mortal world. He knew very little about the immortal world. Therefore, he did not know about the existence of the flaming eyes. In any case, Xiyin is far more powerful than you can imagine. Otherwise, she wouldn't have received so much attention from the Sovereign Lord and Xiyin. You need to give me at least 10 elite Dragon Riders. This number is non-negotiable. If you give me less than 10, I'm afraid I won't be able to keep Xiyin in check. Don't forget, you gave her another 10,000 soldiers. Including the bugs she brought from the banished land, she has 20,000 soldiers." Bai Mingyuan narrowed his eyes and said, "I seem to understand a little. I wonder what Your Majesty understands?" Dora chuckled. "Miss Dora just wants to kill Miss Xiyin. Everything else is actually not important to Miss Dora, right?" He. Dora laughed coldly, so coldly that Bai Mingyuan felt a chill run down his spine. At this moment, Bai Mingyuan wanted nothing more than to kill this little bitch. He had many hidden experts behind him, and they had the ability to do so. However, the consequences might not be something he could bear. What your majesty thinks is your majesty's business. I don't care. Dora's smile was very uncomfortable. Bai Mingyuan was also a very shrewd person. He leaned back on his throne and smiled faintly. I don't care about the open and secret fights between Miss Dora and Miss Xiyin. Since this is a cooperation, then show your sincerity. If I give Miss Dora 10 dragon riders, what will you give me and the Tianji Empire? Dora smiled. If your majesty is willing to cooperate and Xiyin dies in the human world, I will definitely put in a good word for the Tianji Empire when I return to the God realm. I heard that the closest plane to the Tianji Empire is called the Cold Star Continent. If your majesty is willing, the ruler of the Cold Star Continent will be your majesty. It will only take an hour to travel from here to the Cold Star Plain. Your majesty definitely won't mind. In addition, young Master Luo Fei will also give you a light primordial stone as a thank you gift to your majesty. Oh no, it should be 2. Is that right, young Master Luo Fei? Luo Fei's face was livid, but he could only nod. Yes, that's right. If that's the case, then all right. Bai Mingyuan was moved. If he could control another plane, it would mean more resources and strength. Moreover, he couldn't break through to the God Emperor realm for a long time. With the light primordial stone, it would be easier. If he could use the army of the Cold Star Plane to join the Tianji Empire, then it would be just a matter of time before he could wipe out the Celestial Empire and the Blackstone Empire. The rulers of these 2 planes would soon be able to establish their own Baiming family in the God realm. That was something that Bai Mingyuan dreamed of. Someone summon the Dragon Knight General Gong Yangjin to come in and listen to my instructions. Yes. In less than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, a powerhouse wearing exquisite armor walked in. His breath was steady, and the power pulse of 32 heavenly caves could be sensed. He was a Saint Martial King level powerhouse. Gong Yangjin knelt on one knee and said in a low voice, "Subordinate Gong Yangjin greets your majesty." Bai Mingyuan nodded. General Gong Yangjin, greet these 2. Young Master Luo Fei, the young master of the Nia family in the God realm. Miss Dora, the deputy captain of the Battle Angel Squad. From today onwards, you will lead the 9 dragon knights under your command, and follow Miss Dora. You are the soldiers that she borrowed from me. When Miss Dora has fulfilled her wish, you will return to Tianji City and wait for her orders. Gong Yangjin was stunned, then he cupped his fists and said, "Yes, I understand. Then we will take our leave." Dora stood up, bowed and smiled. "General Gong Yangjin, bring your men to the Golden Dragon Embassy to find me." "Yes." Looking at the backs of Luo Fei and Dora, the gentle smile on Bai Mingyuan's face froze, and gradually turned cold. He said, "Humph, a little bitch who thinks she's smart. Luo Fei, you are really useless. You are actually controlled by such a woman. I'm afraid the future of the Nia family can't depend on you." The banquet was very sumptuous and luxurious, and it was an eye-opener for all the battle angels. Although the immortal realm wasn't poor, the cultivation of the immortal realm required bitter cultivation. Although the spiritual energy in the immortal realm was abundant, in terms of delicacies, one still had to look at the mortal world. Everyone ate until their bellies were round, and Xiyin was a little worried that these battle angels would lose their cultivation because they ate too much. As they walked on the road back to the Golden Dragon Embassy, dragon roars echoed in the air. Xiyin couldn't help but frown. She looked up at the sky and said, "Are they dragon knights? Are they following us?" "No, they're not following us." Dora smiled and shouted into the sky, "Gong Yangjin, come down." Flapping dragon wings sounded, and a giant dragon descended. On the dragon's back was Gong Yangjin, who was holding a dragon spear. He said respectfully, "This subordinate greets Miss Dora." Dora smiled with satisfaction. "All right, let's go back. We will set off tomorrow. Come with me." "Yes." Gong Yangjin led the other 9 dragon knights and flew away. Xiyin frowned slightly and asked, "What's going on?" "Oh, it's like this," Dora explained. "Xiyin, You have already borrowed 10,000 soldiers from His Majesty the North Sea. However, I'm worried that it's not enough to help the Battle Angel Squadron complete their mission. Therefore, I borrowed another 10 people from His Majesty. However, they are all Dragon Knights, the ones you saw just now. Dora, what are you trying to do? Sheen suddenly smiled. Dora's hand tightened slightly as she held onto the bottom spear. She said, "Nothing much. I just want to strengthen our forces." "According to what you said, do these 10 Dragon Knights listen to my orders?" "Oh no, they only listen to me." Dora smiled and said, "Sheen, you already have an army of 20,000. Are you still greedy for these 10 people? One should be content with what they have. Besides, this continent is connected to the Celestial Pole continent by the Shattered Cauldron Realm. You alone can't control such a large territory. You should feel gratified to have a capable assistant like me helping you." "I am very gratified." Sheen's voice was very calm as she said, "Take care of yourself. Don't play with fire and burn yourself." Tomorrow morning, we will head to the Shattered Cauldron Realm at full speed to assist in the battle. Are you coming with us?" "Of course." Dora smiled. "My Dragon Knights too." In the night, Terralyn sneered. "A villain intoxicated by success." "What did you say?" Dora's face was as cold as frost. "Terralyn, I really regret not killing you in the Forgotten Forest. Don't be too arrogant. Otherwise, you will only have yourself to blame for any consequences." Sheen's voice became even calmer. "Dora, if you want to kill Terralyn, go ahead and try. I also want to see who will die first. Don't think that you can control me just because you have the bottom spear. With just you alone, you are still far from being able to do so." Dora was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She sat on her horse and gritted her teeth as she watched Sheen, Terralyn, and the others leave. Beside her, Luo Fei said, "She is the captain this time. Why do you have to be angry at her?" "Shut up," Dora said coldly as she looked at him. "What else do you have other than your skills in bed? You are practically a piece of trash. I really don't know how you can help me." Luo Fei was stunned. His face turned green and white as he stood there, not knowing what to do. Dora smiled faintly. "Sister Dora, don't be angry. Sheen won't be able to be smug for long. Why do you have to be angry at a blind person like her? Just wait and see. Things will definitely change when we reach Shattered Cauldron Realm." Can she really reach Shattered Cauldron Realm?" Dora sneered. Both Dora and Luo Fei were stunned, but they didn't dare to speak again. After all, Dora was temperamental, and no one dared to provoke her now. In the blink of an eye, the night passed. The early morning fog covered the surroundings of the harbor. There was no wind in the morning, and only when it was close to noon would the east wind blow away the fog, allowing the warships to move towards the other shore. Based on the current wind speed, it would take about a week to reach Shattered Cauldron Realm from Nine Dragons Port. The 10,000 soldiers of the Flowing Spirit Army had all arrived. However, Sheen had reappointed the Kiliarchs and rewarded them. These 10 Kiliarchs were considered to be obedient to her, and this army was basically under her sole control. On the main warship, there was a lifelike dragon head proudly facing the front. It was a dragon-headed warship, and it was also Sheen's ship. The waves flowed, and the sound of paddling could be heard. The warship was filled with food and water, and it left the harbor. The warship shuttled through the fog, and the cold morning fog soaked their faces. Sheen actually didn't look forward to this trip at all. Even she couldn't explain why she didn't look forward to this massacre. Perhaps she hated killing to begin with. Chapter 8:23. In Zhongnan City, there was an endless stream of vehicles transporting a large amount of resources out of the 8 wastelands and gathered with the civilians who were migrating outside the city. It was like a long black dragon on the snowfield. The cold wind was blowing, and people were coughing violently and shivering. However, no one complained as the enemy was approaching. It was useless to complain. Moreover, the migration was ordered by the Qin Emperor, Lin Muyu. With his prestige, no one would complain. Not only Zhongnan City, but the population of nearly 100 cities in the 8 wastelands were also migrating. There were 2 directions for migration. One was the Tongtian Gorge, and the other was the Yunzhong province. They had to leave the 8 wastelands within 7 days, or else they would be affected by the spread of the war. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were very clear that the civilians were the foundation of the empire. As long as the people were still there, it didn't matter if the city was lost. They could still take it back in the future. Thousands of miles away from the 8 wastelands, the Tongtian Gorge was already in the mood of spring. The Tongtian Gorge was surrounded by high mountains, and it was like spring all year round. The environment here was much better than the harsh 8 wastelands. On the winding road, a group of cavalries galloped towards the hive at the back of God's capital. Lin Muyu, Tang Xiaoxi, and Qianfeng were among them. When they arrived at the hive, the garrison officer at the periphery saluted respectfully and ordered, "Torch, bring His Highness Yu and Princess Shi into the hive." Yes. Hundreds of soldiers from the Longdan army camp raised their weapons and torches, and entered the hive to clear the way. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi also handed their war horses to the guards and entered the hive. The hive was dark. The moment they stepped in, they could hear the sharp sounds of jiejia. Beneath their feet was the paved stone road of the Longdan army camp, which was much easier to walk on than the wet road before. Qianfeng remained silent, while the high-ranking demon generals behind him had mixed feelings. Each and every one of them sighed endlessly. This insect nest was originally a treasure of the demon race, a place that produced a large number of armored demons, winged people, and giant flying snakes. But now, the demon race was defeated, and the insect nest was occupied by humans. There were even many burn marks on the walls. "What's going on?" Lin Muyu pointed at the dust marks on the wall and asked. Feng Shi cupped one hand in the other before his chest and said, "Your Highness, when we first occupied the Tongtian Gorge, there were still many armored demons incubating in the nest, so, in order to prevent them from harming the continent, we burned a lot of them. The armored demon eggs on the periphery have all been burned, but there are still some inside. It's just that these armored demon eggs haven't grown for half a year. I don't know what's going on," Qianfeng said calmly. "It just lacks the nourishment of blood." "Nourishment of blood?" Lin Muyu frowned and said, "Marshal Qianfeng, what's that?" Qianfeng took a deep breath and explained. "The creatures in the insect nest are basically bloodthirsty. They live on blood, so His Majesty the God Emperor sent a large number of living people into the insect nest, killed them, and buried them together, forming a corpse breeding ground under the insect nest. This corpse breeding ground is filled with rotten blood, and the power of the soul is also very strong. It's what the armored demons, winged people, and flying snakes need the most to hatch." Lin Muyu couldn't help but laugh. Such a cruel domestication method. Using human lives to feed your beasts. Just based on this, your race is not worthy of being called the god race. Shouldn't the gods be compassionate to the mortals? Qianfeng laughed at himself. "I've never intervened in the matters of the insect nest, and I'm not qualified to intervene. It's all controlled by the sacred master. What's the point of Your Highness you blaming Qianfeng at this time?" "Yes." Lin Muyu nodded, looked at the wet moss on the ground and said, "Is there any other way to provide nutrients for the insect eggs?" "Yes." Qianfeng said, "The god race has been dormant in the Tongtian Gorge for tens of thousands of years. Relying on the protection of the canopy barrier, they've avoided the pursuit and surveillance of the god-level experts on the continent. During this time, we've been capturing wild beasts in the forest and mountain gorge. Wild boars, goats, and elks are all our hunting targets. Burying these prey alive in the insect nest can also form a corpse breeding ground. Although the effect is greatly inferior to that of humans, it can still be used to hatch these creatures from another plane." Lin Muyu's eyes lit up. "This is feasible. There are many forests in the Tongtian province, and it won't be a problem to send troops to hunt wild animals. Moreover, we have quite a number of livestock. Your Highness you really wants to reopen the insect nest. You've seen the power of the dragon knights. Our magic crystal cannons and magic crystal crossbows are useless against them. Perhaps the giant flying snakes will be a solution. You and I have both seen the power and size of the giant flying snakes. As long as there's the protection of a god-level expert, the giant flying snakes might not be at a disadvantage in a battle against the giant dragons." "That's right." Qianfeng nodded. The core of the flying snakes is a huge gravitational field. It can overturn the direction of gravity in the plane. After all, the giant dragons are wild beasts that fly in the sky. Once their gravity is overturned, their power will naturally be greatly reduced. However, Qianfeng still has to tell Your Highness you that the giant flying snakes are not that easy to tame. Every giant flying snake needs to absorb an uncountable amount of flesh and blood in order to grow. I know, but I don't care. Marshal Qianfeng, I'll provide enough livestock and prey for the insect nest. As for how to tame and hatch the giant flying snakes, it's still up to you. Do you know how to do it? Qianfeng smiled. I used to be a marshal of the Protoss. How could I not know how to? The Holy Master and His Majesty have already taught me. At this moment, everyone had arrived at the depths of the insect nest. This place had not been burned. Stone pillars rose into the sky, and around the stone pillars were densely packed light blue sacks. Lin Muyu was stunned. She opened her palm, and the light of dawn illuminated her field of vision. She saw an armor demon larva that had not yet fully evolved lying in the translucent sacks. It was about the size of a human body. It was curled up together, and the black hair all over its body had not fully grown. It seemed to be breathing, and as it breathed, the surface of the sacks was also slowly vibrating. Tang Xiaoxi frowned and said, "Is this the armor demon that defeated the Empire's army?" "That's right." Qianfeng smiled bitterly. "Yes, it is them. For thousands of years, they have been regarded as the warriors of the Protoss. The armor demons are extremely strong. The only weakness is that they are afraid of fire and water, right? It just so happens that this weakness has been seen through." Lin Muyu said, "There's no point in hatching the armor demons anymore. Whether it's against the Dragon Knights or the Beast Cavalry, the armor demons have no advantage. If we have the energy, we might as well train some Imperial cavalry that can resist the dragon's flames." "How can we resist the dragon's flames?" Qianfeng was a little stunned. He could not imagine that there would be something in the world that could resist the dragon's flames. Lin Muyu smiled. "Marshal Qianfeng, there's a technique on the continent called engraving. I wonder if you know about it?" "Engraving?" Qianfeng was confused. "That's right, engraving. I've learned it before." Lin Muyu said, "The fourth level of engraving is called the Dragon Slayer seal. Any engraver with a Dragon Slayer seal will have an extremely strong resistance to the dragon's flames. I've tested this before. A Dragon Slayer seal shield can resist the Acatosaurus's dragon's flames for 10 seconds, while the Dragon Knight's flames can only last for a few seconds. So, as long as we have the Dragon Slayer seal, our cavalry will have an advantage over the Dragon Knights." Qianfeng nodded. "If that's the case, that's great." Tang Xiaoxi, however, poured cold water on his enthusiasm. "But Mu, you know better than me how expensive a finished engraving is. A top-grade engraver with the Dragon Slayer seal costs at least 2,000 Jin coins. How can we afford it? So we can only create a small team of cavalry with a Dragon Slayer seal." Lin Muyu took a deep breath and said, "Fengxi, send a letter to Lanyan City to collect shields and armors for the Dragon Slayer seal. At the same time, order the world to recruit engraver masters who can engrave the Dragon Slayer seal. We need to gather more than 5,000 Dragon Slayer seal embryos as soon as possible. Otherwise, we won't be able to fight. Also, help me get more top-grade shield embryos, the more the better." "Yes, Your Highness." At this time, Lin Muyu looked up and saw a huge object attached to the nest. It was the embryo of a flying snake. Although it was just an embryo, it was at least 10 meters long. Its head and tail were connected together, curled up and making a faint sound. It was actually still alive, but it would take a lot of resources to feed it and make it bigger. "Giant flying snake." "Yes, giant flying snake," Qianfeng said leisurely. "It was once the pride of the god race, but it was defeated by the fire of the magic crystal cannons." Lin Muyu took a deep breath. "Then, the matter of domesticating and hatching the giant flying snake will be entrusted to Marshal Qianfeng. Please rest assured, Your Highness." "Wait a minute." A demon captaincy behind Qianfeng respectfully said, "Your Highness, I think you can't order the marshal to do this for no reason. At the very least, Your Highness, you should reward the marshal." Otherwise, the marshal's position will not be justified. How will he be able to establish a foothold in Heaven's Gorge? After all, the Empire's army is stationed everywhere in Heaven's Gorge. Smelter, don't be presumptuous. Qianfeng scolded. No. Lin Muyu raised her hand and said, General Smelter's reminder is right. It is my negligence. Since we have decided to join forces to deal with the enemies of the celestial pole continent, we cannot be the slightest bit negligent. Then, Qianfeng listened to my announcement. Qianfeng was startled. He took 2 steps back and knelt on one knee. Qianfeng is here. Lin Muyu said, the demon race has been defeated. This is an indisputable fact. However, Marshal Qianfeng, as a descendant of the demon race, will allow Qianfeng to continue to lead the demon race. In addition, the Heaven's Gorge and 8 Wastelands will be unified as the 13th province of the Qin Empire, named 8 Wastelands Province. I will promote Qianfeng to be the chief governor of 8 Wastelands Province, commanding all the troops in the province. I will also allow Qianfeng to recruit soldiers and expand his army in 8 Wastelands Province. He will also be allowed to call himself a descendant of the god race. The Empire will not interfere with any military or political affairs in 8 Wastelands Province. 8 Wastelands Province must pay 30% of its income to the Empire every year. Marshal Qianfeng, are you satisfied with this? Qianfeng was silent. After a few seconds he said, Thank you, Your Highness, for preserving the name of the god race. No need to be polite. Get up. Yes. Chapter 824. On the 6th of April, the snow on the 8 wastelands melted, and warm spring finally arrived. In the distance, an endless stream of imperial troops entered the 8 wastelands and stationed themselves in Zhongnan City and other cities. The commander of the Iron Blade Army, Luo Xian, personally led 150,000 soldiers to assist the Longdan army camp in defending the 8 Wastelands province. The shouts of men and neighs of horses could be heard, and the banners covered the sky. The military's might was at its peak. The Iron Blade Army was the most powerful army in Cloud Province, and they were also the guardians of the northern gate of the empire. The arrival of the Iron Blade Army undoubtedly calmed the hearts of the 100,000 warriors of the Longdan army camp. Lin Muyu arranged for Luo Xian to defend Zhongnan City, while she and Tang Xiaoxi led elite troops to defend a county city to the east of Zhongnan City. They formed a triangular formation with Zhongnan City and Sangguan, ready to receive the arrival of the Longji army at any time. However, the Longji army did not seem to want to attack the 8 wastelands at all. They had been lying dormant in the northern polar region for a long time without making any movements. They were waiting for the arrival of the Maritime Expeditionary Force. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi were well aware of this, but there was nothing they could do. In the end, it was still a bit difficult for the millions of soldiers of the empire to defend the entire territory. Moreover, the opponent was not just one country, but the alliance of the Tianji Empire and the Blackstone Empire. At dusk, the flames of war swirled in the sky above the dragon-shaped island. After 3 days of continuous fierce fighting, both sides suffered heavy losses. However, with the help of the dragon riders circling in the air, it was clear that the Blackstone Empire's army had the absolute upper hand. The entire plains were filled with cannon craters of varying depths. War chariots were overturned, horses lay on the ground, and blood flowed for hundreds of miles. There was no longer a single intact flag of the Iha country on the battlefield. The Iha country's foundation had already been shaken by the crushing defeat. Kill! Amidst the roars of wild beasts, a group of Blackstone Empire's beast-mounted cavalry whizzed past, killing the hundreds of nominally Iha country's cavalry that were hurriedly reorganizing their battle line into pieces. It was to the extent that under the roars of the giant bears, the Iha country's warhorses were so scared that they could not move, and the cavalrymen on their backs could only become targets of slaughter. Ha ha ha. A bunch of trash. After sweeping through, one of the 5,000 generals of the Blackstone Empire let out a wild laugh. He spurred his warhorse forward and ruthlessly pierced his spear into the heart of a young soldier of the Iha Empire, who had yet to die. After pulling the spear out, Blood spurted out and he said, "How can such a lowly race enjoy such a great land? Ah! Continue to kill. Don't leave any captives. Kill them all." The Blackstone Empire was ferocious and brutal. This was something that the entire celestial pole continent knew about. When they went into battle, they never left any captives. Furthermore, massacring cities was a common occurrence for the Blackstone Empire. Emperor Shi Yuan's method of boosting the morale of his soldiers was ancient and effective. Slaughtering surrendered soldiers, raiding cities, raping fathers and daughters, and selling people were all his forte. Puff, puff, puff. The javelins pierced through the central tent, and hundreds of beast cavalrymen swept past, razing the Iha country's central tent to the ground. However, they did not find the highest commander. Over there. An old soldier pointed into the distance. Ahahaha, 2 3-star generals. Oh, and they're gold-collared ones. They're marshals of the Iha country. Ha, Long Qianlin and Ding Shi are over there. Amidst the smoke, several tens of people were resisting with all their might in pools of blood. Among them were Long Qianlin and Ding Shi. After many years of cultivation, Long Qianlin had already stepped into the Saint Domain, but Ding Shi was still at the Heaven Realm. He had aged much faster than Long Qianlin. However, the two of them were covered in blood now, and they did not look like half-marshals at all. Their swords were full of broken nicks and bloodstains. There were even drops of fresh blood slowly flowing down the edges of the swords. These were the corpses of the soldiers of the Blackstone Empire. Make way. The heavy cavalry of the Ashen Flames army slowly opened up a path. And a general who was about 50 years old walked over on horseback with a long saber in hand. He was none other than the commander of the Ashen Flames army, Fu Yu, one of the Saint Martial Venerables of the Blackstone Empire. Fu Yu had a brutal nature. It was said that he had once killed a maidservant who had spilled wine when she was pouring wine for him. Her corpse was then thrown into a wine cellar to ferment, and it was given the name Beauty's Wine. There was no one in the Ashen Flames army who did not fear Fu Yu. However, Fu Yu was brave in battle, so he was placed in an important position by Shi Yuan, making him one of the commanders of the expeditionary army of the Blackstone Empire. Tuck, tuck, tuck. The hooves of the horse stepped on the blood-stained ground, and Fu Yu stepped over the corpses of the Iha country's soldiers. The corners of his mouth curled up, and he laughed savagely. "You two are the 2 marshals of the Iha country? You seem nothing special." Ding Shi wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and said with a smile, "And who are you?" "My name is Fu Yu, the commander of the Ashen Flames army. This identity is enough to speak to you, right? Marshal Ding Shi?" Fu Yu stared coldly at Ding Shi's legs, and said with a smile, "It's a good pair of chopsticks." Ding Shi could not help but laugh. "Chopsticks? Where did you see chopsticks?" No. Fu Yu shook his finger and said with a smile, "I'm saying that after I kill you, I'm going to carve your leg bones into a pair of chopsticks." "You." Ding Shi could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Meanwhile, the group of Iha country generals beside him were all filled with righteous indignation. Several of them raised their weapons and charged out shouting, "Die, you beast!" "Is that so?" Fu Yu swung his long saber, and the law of fire and divine power roared. In the blink of an eye, 7 Kiliarchs from Iha country were turned into ashes, and they fell to the ground in flames. The difference in strength was not as simple as one. Ding Shi's eyes were filled with despair. He tore off a piece of cloth from his cloak and wrapped it around his bloodied hands. He gripped his long sword tightly and said with a smile, "Marshal Long, it's time for us to show our loyalty to the Iha country and the Shattered Cauldron realm. I don't know why, but this battle is the most satisfying battle I, Ding Shi, have ever fought in my life. My opponent is finally no longer one of us." Long Qianlin also smiled, and a trickle of blood flowed down his forehead into his eyes, as though he was crying tears of blood. He said, "Marshal Long, it's time for us to show our loyalty to the Iha country and the Shattered Cauldron realm. I don't know why, but this battle is the most satisfying battle I, Ding Shi, have ever fought in my life. Finally, my opponent is no longer one of us. Kill." The shouts of dozens of people seemed to be earth-shattering. Fu Yu's face was ashen as he gripped his long sword and said, "You're about to die, and you're still trying to talk big. You really don't know what's good for you. Killing trash like you will only dirty my blade. Men, release 10,000 arrows at once. I want to see them turn into porcupines. Behind him, the archers drew their bows. A dense rain of arrows rained down. And in the blink of an eye, dozens of Iha country's generals fell one by one in a rain of blood. Long Qianlin and Ding Shi were hit by several arrows, but with their cultivation, they wouldn't die so easily. They were only seriously injured. Another round. The arrows continued to burst forth with fierce killing intent, and Ding Shi and Long Qianlin's battle energy was almost exhausted. Even the speed at which they swung their weapons to block the arrows became very slow, and in the blink of an eye, they were hit by a few more arrows. Puffed! Ding Shi suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his knees went soft as he knelt on the ground. He had reached his limit. Ding Shuai! Long Qianlin hurriedly supported his arm and said, "How are you?" Ding Shi's face was covered in blood, but he smiled and said, I saw it." "What did you see?" Long Qianlin was stunned. Ding Shi blankly looked at the sky and murmured, "I saw thousands of miles of rivers and mountains. I saw a throne surrounded by hundreds of dragons. I saw the world being unified. I saw peace. I saw tranquility. I saw Tenmu of fertile land and a peaceful life that I promised my wife. I saw dogs barking. I saw good people no longer crying, but I can't live to see that day." Long Qianlin's nose turned sour, and tears mixed with blood flowed down. Finally, he knelt on the ground powerlessly and said with a sad smile, "Ding Shuai, my good big brother, if you want to leave, let Qianlin go in front of you. Thank you. Thank you for correcting my evil heart for so many years. Thank you for treating me like an elder brother." With that, Long Qianlin forcibly gathered the last of his strength, tightly gripped his longsword, and rushed toward his opponent. There was no fear on his face as he roared, "Even if my country perishes, my heart will not die. You bandits must die." PFFF PFFF PFFF. Dozens of sharp arrows shot into his body, but Long Qianlin didn't stop. He rushed toward his opponent with blood all over the ground, roaring, "Big brother, I'm going first. You're courting death." Fu Yu laughed coldly as he urged his horse forward, and his saber lightly pressed against Long Qianlin's heart-protecting mirror. Bang! The heart-protecting mirror split open, and the tip of the saber pierced into his flesh. It pushed an inch by inch until the edge of the saber pierced straight through Long Qianlin's heart. Fu Yu roared furiously as the edge of the saber pierced through his body, and he forcefully raised Long Qianlin's body into midair as he roared furiously. "This is the consequence of going against the Darkstone Empire. Turn into ashes." The edge of the longsword suddenly spun rapidly, and flames sprayed out. In the blink of an eye, Long Qianlin's corpse had already turned into minced meat and ashes. Fresh blood splattered on every soldier of the Ashen Flame Legion. But they seemed to thirst for this fresh blood. It was probably because this was the body of the Marshal of the Iha Nation, a famous general of the Shattered Cauldron Realm, Long Qianlin. Ding Shi knelt on the ground, watching the scene of Long Qianlin's tragic death in the distance. His heart felt like it was being twisted by a knife, and tears flowed out of his eyes. "Long Qianlin, good Marshal of the Iha Nation, rest in peace. Ding Shi will accompany you soon." With that, he suddenly raised his longsword and placed it across his neck. He was going to commit suicide. "Wait a moment." Fu Yu roared angrily, and with a palm strike, he sent Ding Shi's sword flying. With a cold gaze he said, "Ding Shi, this commander said that you are my future chopsticks. Without my permission, you cannot die." Ding Shi looked at him dejectedly and sneered, "Come, it doesn't matter how you die, but you a beast like you will sooner or later end up like me. Just wait and see. There will naturally be people who will avenge me and Long Qianlin." "Are you dreaming?" Fu Yu laughed loudly. However, at this moment, a dragon's roar suddenly sounded in the sky. It was a dragon rider riding on a green dragon, and he said loudly, "Commander Fu Yu, a fleet has appeared in our Eastern Sea region. There are about 100 warships." "Oh." Fu Yu raised his eyebrows and asked, "Whose army is it?" "It seems to be the flag of the Tianji Empire." "Humph, a mere 100 warships are nothing to be afraid of. After I kill Ding Shi, I will go and meet them." "Yes." Fu Yu slowly raised his longsword. and the blade was still stained with Long Qianlin's blood. Just as Fu Yu's blade was about to fall, a woman's voice suddenly sounded in his ear. Stop! What? Fu Yu seemed to have misheard, but in the blink of an eye, his face was filled with anger. No one has dared to order me, but I will kill him. The blade followed the wind and went straight for Ding Shi's neck. Ding Shi closed his eyes. Death was the best ending. At least he would not have to bear all the pain in the world anymore. Pa pa! Lightning flashed, and a beautiful figure suddenly appeared between Fu Yu and Ding Shi. A pair of golden wings of light spread out, and with a clang, Fu Yu's blade was forcefully knocked back. Chapter 825. Who are you? Fu Yu looked at the girl in front of him in shock. Her eyes were tightly shut, but her eyebrows were like a brush stroke. She was extremely beautiful, and she was dressed in the attire of a level 7 battle angel. The girl didn't look at him and said indifferently, "Don't kill him." Why? Fu Yu was used to being arrogant and didn't seem to want to listen to her. At this moment, another bolt of lightning flashed and another beautiful girl arrived. It was Terralyn. Terralyn glanced at Fu Yu and said, "The godly state experts of the celestial pole continent are getting more and more unruly. They don't even salute when they see a battle angel. They really need to be taught a lesson." Battle angel? Fu Yu had never been to the heaven realm. Although he had the cultivation of the 21st grotto heaven realm, he had never heard of the existence of battle angels. He rolled his eyes and said, "I don't care what battle angel you are. If you dare to disturb me while I am enforcing the military law, I will kill you all." "You can try," Xiyin said indifferently. "Let's try." Fu Yu roared, "Brothers, let's kill them together." Terralyn stepped back. Xiyin suddenly said, and Terralyn naturally knew what he meant. The next moment, Xiyin suddenly opened his eyes. Instantly, his pupils that were wrapped in golden flames looked like the eyes of a god that could see through everything in the world. The powerful domain power crushed down like a landslide, making Fu Yu and the Ashen Flame Core unable to move. Moreover, Xiyin could kill them with just a small movement. No one dared to look at Xiyin's blazing light eyes again. However, it was useless. Even if they didn't look, Xiyin's aura had already completely controlled everything. The golden wings of light slowly extended, and Xiyin flew above Fu Yu. He said indifferently, "What did you say just now? You want to kill us, am I right?" I. Fu Yu couldn't say anything. Xiyin raised his hand and slapped Fu Yu's right cheek instantly swelled up. "What did you say?" Xiyin continued to ask. Pa. Another palm strike. This palm strike was even more powerful, sending a few of Fu Yu's teeth flying into the sky. After that, Xiyin couldn't even be bothered to ask any more questions. A series of slaps left Fu Yu's face covered in blood. However, this commander of the Ashen Flame Corps didn't even have the strength to retaliate. "Stop hitting, Xiyin, you're going to turn into a pig's head." Terralyn giggled. Only then did Xiyin stop. With his back facing Ding Shi, he said to Fu Yu, "I want to save this person's life, can I?" Fu Yu's face was ashen. Yes. Xiyin lowered his head and slowly closed his eyes. The moment the blazing eyes closed, he finally felt as if he had just walked through purgatory. The Xiyin in front of him had also turned into a pure and cute girl from the immortal world. It was as if he had been dreaming. When Xiyin slowly turned around, Ding Shi was stunned. "Qinin. Princess Qinin. What's wrong? Someone called me Qinin again?" Xiyin frowned and said, "I don't know your name, and I don't know who you are. But I feel like you saved me in the past, and that's why I saved you. There's no need to thank me, this is my repayment. Are you willing to follow me in the future?" Ding Shi had long been disheartened. Hearing Qin Yin's words, he immediately knelt on one knee and said in a very calm voice, "Ding Shi is a sinner. If Princess Yin is willing to take Ding Shi in, Ding Shi will sacrifice his life to repay you." "That's good. So your name is Ding Shi. Ding Shi, who do you want to save now?" "My subordinates." Ding Shi turned around and found that almost all of his subordinates were dead. Only one person was still standing there with a spear in his hand. His chest and legs were full of arrows. It was Ding Sanging. "Sanging, come over." "Yes, Marshal." Ding Sanging hobbled over and said respectfully, Subordinate Iha Nation's East Suppression General Ding Sangin greets Princess Een. Sheen didn't know why they called her that, but she couldn't be bothered to care. She nodded and said, "Then come with me. Our ship is about to reach the shore. How far is this place from the Shattered Cauldron Realm continent?" "Ding," she said, "a few 100 meters. Just 2 days of sailing with the wind." "All right, then we'll station ourselves on Dragon Island." Sheen closed her eyes and faced the direction of the Ashen Flame Core and said, "The person I just beat up, bring your men and get out of Dragon Island immediately. This is my territory." "Ah." Fu Yu's face was ashen. But we fought for 4 days and 4 nights and lost tens of thousands of soldiers to obtain this island. We leave or not, it's your choice." Sheen said indifferently. At this moment, lightning flashed behind her. The other 8 battle angels also appeared and got into a battle stance. Their light wings were extremely resplendent. Roar, roar. It was a dragon knight. An unarmed dragon knight descended from the sky. It was the vice commander of the Blackstone Dragon Riders, Han Shu. He looked at Sheen and the others with a pale face and said respectfully, "Subordinate Han Shu, the vice commander of the Blackstone Empire's Dragon Riders, greets the battle angels." Sheen nodded. "Dispense with the formalities. Take your men and leave this place. Dragon Island is mine." "Yes." Fuyu was shocked. "But, Lord Han Shu." Han Shu's eyes were cold. "Commander Fuyu, say no more. Lord Battle Angel is a god from the divine realm, and has brought the decree of the ruler. If you dare to resist, I will kill you immediately." Han Shu's words were not to be doubted. Fuyu didn't even doubt that he would really attack. Han Shu wasn't that kind of person, but if he really became violent, even Fuyu might not be able to endure it. Gritting his teeth, Fuyu raised his arm and shouted, "Gather food and water. Everyone, board the ships and leave Dragon Island." Han Shu respectfully cupped his fists at Sheen and the others. "Then this subordinate will leave. Lord Battle Angels, if you have any instructions, please let me know. This subordinate will definitely get it done." The corner of Sheen's mouth curled up. "There's nothing else. Go. Are you going to attack the Shattered Cauldron Realm next?" "Yes. Kill less and keep more captives. Only by being benevolent can you rule for a long time. Do you understand?" "Yes, this subordinate understands." Sheen smiled faintly. "Go. If I find out that you are massacring the entire Shattered Cauldron Realm, you will definitely regret it." "Yes, this subordinate understands." Han Shu didn't dare to say anything else. He turned the dragon's head and quickly left. In the blink of an eye, only corpses and flies were left on the battlefield. It was spring, so many corpses had already started to rot. Ding Shi knelt on the ground and came to the place where Long Qianlin had died. He scooped up the ashes on the ground, tears flowing down his cheeks as he said in a trembling voice, "General Long, oh General Long, your death is such a pity." His whole body trembled as if he was seriously ill. He seemed to be talking to himself. "Third watch, send people to gather the ashes on this land. I want to bring General Long back to his hometown." Sheen said, "Ding Shi, do you still have anyone alive? Immediately arrange for people to bury the corpses. Otherwise, this battlefield might cause a plague on Dragon Island." "Yes, Your Highness." Ding Shi said slowly, "We still have many soldiers who have yet to evacuate. They are scattered in a few ports. There are about 30,000 of them. This subordinate will immediately summon them back." "Yes, my men will help as well." "Yes." Ding Shi looked at Sheen, wanting to say something but hesitating. "What do you want to say?" Sheen's voice was extremely calm. "Are you really Your Highness Chinin?" "No, I am Sheen, the battle angel Sheen from the land of exile." "Perhaps you really aren't her." Ding Shi was somewhat at a loss. He said, "Your Highness, I will immediately go and gather people." "Yes, remember to heal your wounds first." Terralyn flew up and took out a bottle of healing medicine. She smiled and said, "Ding Shi, take this. It can help you heal your wounds quickly." "Thank you, miss." Ding Shi took the medicine and staggered away. In the distance, there were already soldiers from Iha country coming over. The war was over, and they were no longer in danger. Flies flew around. When the flies flew around Sheen, they were burned to ashes by the power of the light wall, when they were about 50 centimeters away from her body. They were like moths flying into a flame. Dola held the Dig's spear and looked at the ground full of corpses indifferently. She said, "Humph, we clearly came to help the celestial pole continent win the war quickly. But now we have to help others clean up the battlefield and bury the corpses. Sheen, could it be that you have forgotten the ruler's decree?" "No, I have never forgotten it," Sheen said indifferently. "But we are battle angels, not soldiers who charge into enemy lines. Winning a war is not something that can be done in a day." "Dola, why are you so anxious? We are stationed on the dragon-shaped island and can observe all the battles in Shattered Cauldron Realm at any time. We can make our decision then. Don't forget that I am the leader of the Battle Angel squad. If you give random orders and don't follow orders, I will kill you." Dola gritted her teeth. "You." Luo Fei tugged on Dora's hand and said, "Dora, she's right. There's a saying in the human world that good steel should be used on the blade's edge. We're a Battle Angel party, so we shouldn't be charging into enemy lines in the first place. We should be the ones dealing with the strongest opponents." "Humph." Dola sneered and did not say anything else. The battle on the dragon-shaped island was the second battlefield between Shattered Cauldron Realm and Celestial Pole Continent. In the end, the Iha nation suffered a crushing defeat. Even Long Qianlin, one of the two great generals of the Iha nation, had perished. When Long Qianlin perished, Qin Yi and Qin Huan's fleet had arrived at the east coast of Shattered Cauldron Realm continent after a 3-day voyage. They did not approach the Linkhong province's territory from the front. Instead, they chose to enter the continent from the extreme south. After the warships docked, the 150,000 soldiers disembarked and entered the southern barbarian forest. There are poisonous insects and ferocious beasts everywhere. What a barren land. Qin Huan rode on his warhorse and said with a face full of dissatisfaction, "Father, why don't we attack the 4 ports of Linkhong province? Most of their troops are stationed in the north, and there aren't many troops in Linkhong province. With our 150,000 soldiers, it would be a piece of cake to attack the 4 ports." Qin Yi frowned. "Huaner, don't say any more. This is our homeland. It is the homeland that Ding Shi and Long Qianlin think about day and night. It is already a blessing to be able to step on this land. Why are you so dissatisfied?" Qin Huan did not say anything else. However, no one knew that Long Qianlin would never be able to step on the land of his homeland again. Chapter 826. What? Long Qianlin is dead? 3 days later, in the Deerhorn County Government Office. When Lin Muyu received the news of Long Qianlin's death, he was extremely shocked and accidentally knocked over the cup on the table, causing the hot tea to spill all over the floor. Wei Chou dusted off the rain on his armor and hung his raincoat at the side. "That's right, I just received Yu's letter. The Blackstone Empire's Ashen Flame Army and Sea Mountain Army had a total of 300,000 soldiers attacking the Dragon Island. Both sides fought for 4 days and 4 nights on the plains of the island. Almost none of the 200,000 soldiers from the Iha country survived. Long Qianlin died in battle, and the person who killed him was the commander of the Ashen Flame Army, called Fuyu." "Fuyu." Lin Muyu slowly sat down and muttered again. "Fuyu? Your Highness, what's wrong?" Wei Chou was slightly surprised. Long Qianlin was a mortal enemy, but after hearing the news of his death, Lin Muyu did not seem to be happy at all. Tang Xiaoxi, on the other hand, was smart enough to see through it at a glance. She said, "The Empire and the Iha nation have had endless grievances. After so many years, Long Qianlin was the pillar of the Iha nation. Now that Long Qianlin is dead, I'm sure Mumu will feel lonely." "Yes," Wei Chou nodded and said, "Your Highness, according to the descriptions of the survivors, Long Qianlin was still laughing at the moment of his death, saying that he was not fighting against his own people, and that he fought to his heart's content." "Is it?" Lin Muyu frowned. "But he died a humiliating death. Long Qianlin should not have ended up like that. Fuyu does not have the qualifications to kill Long Qianlin. It is truly like a dragon swimming in shallow water being toyed with by shrimps." "Fuyu," Tang Xiaoxi said. "Mu, you want to take revenge for Long Qianlin?" "No." Lin Muyu shook her head. Once the Blackstone Empire's army occupies dragon-shaped island, their next target will definitely be our empire's mainland. Fu Yu is fated to be our mortal enemy, but if it's possible, I really do want to kill this person with my own hands and take revenge for my old enemy and friend, Long Qianlin. Wei Chou said, the Blackstone Empire's army hasn't occupied Dragon Island. Oh. Why? It said that after Long Qianlin and Ding Shi's troops were defeated, a group of people with glowing wings came to the dragon-shaped island. They were extremely powerful. One of the women gave Fu Yu a beating on the spot, and ordered the Ashen Flame Corps to scram from the dragon-shaped island. After that, the dragon-shaped island was occupied by this group of people with wings. People with wings? What kind of people are they? Lin Muyu was shocked. It's the exiled Angel Legion. There are 10 of them in total. It is said that they are from the Western Divine Realm. If nothing goes wrong, they will be our opponents. If that's the case, then we're in big trouble. Lin Muyu clenched her fists and said, the Heaven's Pole continent is already troublesome enough. If another exiled Angel Legion comes, how are we going to defend against them? Wei Chou, do you know how strong these exiled angels are? I don't know, but it is said that they are all at the Saint Martial King level and above. Lin Muyu fell silent. She felt an indescribable irritation in the bottom of her heart. After a long while, she raised her head and asked, have the scouts sent back any news? Is there any news from the sea or the Continental Bridge? There is. Wei Chou cupped his fists and said, the Tianji Empire has sent out the Long Ji Army and the Flowing Ji Army, a total of about 400,000 soldiers. They are separated into more than 190 warships and have already entered the Blue Wind Sea domain last night. This is also equivalent to entering the Empire's territorial waters. However, the strange thing is that they did not immediately launch an attack. Instead, they stayed on the surface of the sea, as if they are waiting for something. What about the Blackstone Empire's army? They are heading in the direction of the Sky Province. According to our calculations, they should be arriving at the Sky Province's territorial waters at this time. Then they should be making their move now. Lin Muyu took a deep breath. The Tianji Empire and the Blackstone Empire have joined hands to attack the Shattered Cauldron Realm. This war should have already begun. It's just that we, who are in the Eight Desolates province, do not know about it. Then what should we do? Wei Chou was stunned. It's fine. Blue Wind Port has Big Brother Feng and the Navy Commander Beili Tsang guarding it. They won't be defeated so quickly. Moreover, they have Dragon Knights, while we have magic crystal cannons. This war will be fought. What I am worried about is the Sky Province. The Sky Province is only guarded by the Marquis of the Tranquil Sea, Yao Yuan's army. It's impossible for them to be a match for the 300,000 soldiers of the Blackstone Empire. Thinking of this, he suddenly stood up and said, this won't do. Immediately send out the order to reinforce the Sky Province. Order Su Jiantao to directly lead the Five Valley Cities army to reinforce the Sky Province. Do not delay for even a moment. Yes, curse battle. There won't be too intense a naval battle in the Sky Province. They will come ashore. Yes, Wei Chou's expression was a little gloomy. Lin Muyu was guarding the small Deerhorn County, but she seemed to be able to foresee all the major events in the world. This was probably the difference between him and a famous general, right? There was still a lot to learn. At this moment, hurried footsteps could be heard from outside the door. A messenger said anxiously, Your Highness, the Warhawk Scouts have sent back news. Last night, the Long Ji army in the Icebound Lands was nowhere to be seen. Their Dragon Knights are nowhere to be found. They should have moved somewhere else. Where would they go? Wei Chou was stunned. Lin Muyu's heart was in a mess. She said, Who is the commander of the Long Ji army? Wei Chou said, It's their commander Feng Lan. I've spied on Feng Lan before. He definitely wouldn't have such a strategy. Lin Muyu immediately denied and said, What are our spies doing? Who else would attack the Shattered Cauldron Realm together with the Long Ji army and the Flowing Wind army? For example, strategists. Wei Chou was stunned. There are quite a lot of strategists. The Marshal's office of the Tianji Empire has a total of 10 strategists. The most famous one is called Gong Shangming. Yes, it's this person. I heard that he came with the commander of the Flowing Wind Army, Caster. Gong Shangming. Lin Muyu's palm landed on the table lightly. Find a chance to assassinate this person. Oh, Wei Chou was a little stunned. He had never seen Lin Muyu act like this. She had never planned to assassinate the opponent's strategist before the battle even started. Xiaoxi. Lin Muyu looked at the beautiful young lady beside her and said, Deerhorn County no longer needs us. Let's go to Blue Wind Harbor. If there are no accidents, there will definitely be a huge battle there. Yes. Tang Xiaoxi nodded. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already flown out of Deerhorn County, leaving Wei Chou and Fengxi dumbstruck. Dong 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 dong. 2,000 to 400 kilometers away, the sky above Blue Wind Harbor reverberated with the deafening sound of war drums. The sounds of the war drums became more and more intense, which also proved that a battle was about to begin. In the harbor, battleships sailed into the sea after replenishing their supplies. Every battleship had a dark blue flag of the Purple Yinhua Empire. This flag that had lasted for tens of thousands of years still fluttered in the sky above the empire's territory. However, no one knew how long this history would last. Huge battleships entered the inner sea one after another. The waterline was very deep, the parapet was high, and the outside of the parapet was cast with iron sheets. Every battleship cost a lot of money and had not been tested in battle. No one knew if these battleships, which were regarded as the Empire's king's battleships, would be able to achieve great feats. On the main battleship, the parapet was a full 3 meters tall. The bow of the ship was a defensive body wrapped in thick iron sheets. The tip of the ship protruded like a dragon's tooth, and was forged with white diamond. This allowed the battleship to not be at a disadvantage when colliding with the opponent. On the deck, Feng Jixing held a long blade in his hand. He was tall and straight, and he had the demeanor of a king. His eyes were looking at the indistinct figures of the opponents in the distance. Those were the troops of the Tianji Empire. How are the preparations going? He nodded and asked, as if he did not want to get an answer at all. Beili Tsong said respectfully, Your Highness, a total of 500 battleships are ready. In addition, there are also 1,100 iron-skin battleships, 1,500 Liaotsong warships, and 2,700 barges. The Liaotsong and the iron-skin battleships are equipped with light magic crystal cannons. The rest of the small ships are only equipped with elite crossbowmen and shield bearers. Each battleship battle group consists of 2 battleships, for iron-skin battleships, 6 Liaotsong warships and 10 barges. They will reinforce and protect each other to achieve the maximum combat power. In addition, all the small ships are equipped with black beach oil and so on. If necessary, we can use fire to attack at any time. Okay, got it. Feng Jixing waved his hand lightly and said, Pass the order, advance, start the battle. Yes, Your Highness. The sound of the war drum suddenly stopped and paused for 2 to 3 seconds after 3 rapid beats of the drums. Then there were 3 more beats of the drums. This was the order to attack. Immediately, all the sailors on the battleships began to paddle with all their might. On the surface of the sea, the densely packed battleships of the Empire headed straight for the Eastern Sea region. An unprecedented naval battle had finally begun. Feng Jixing looked up at the sky and sighed. It's the east wind. I'm afraid it's not good for our army to fight. Beside him, Chu Chu stroked his beard and smiled slightly. With the help of the wind, this old man can do it. Then I'll have to trouble Chu. Qin Yan said respectfully. Okay. Chu Chu's sleeves shook slightly. Suddenly, the sky changed color. In the blink of an eye, dark clouds covered the sky. A strong wind blew from the west, causing thousands of battleships of the Empire to whistle forward. However, the wind from afar was still the east wind. It could be imagined that there were people in the Tianji Empire's fleet who were also summoning wind and rain. When the two forces collided, the aura on the entire sea surface suddenly became chaotic. I'm afraid the sea surface won't be peaceful soon, Chu Chu said calmly. Ouyang Yen frowned slightly. Yes, it's destined to not be peaceful. In the blink of an eye, the impact airflow lingered and swirled around each other, condensing into a few soaring tornadoes that wreaked havoc on the surface of the sea. They were not under any control. Any battleship that entered their domain would definitely be destroyed. Avoid them. Feng Jixing shouted loudly. The flag bearers on the mast quickly waved the command flag. The battleships began to separate and evade in an orderly manner. The two sides got closer and closer. Very soon, they were less than a kilometer apart. Even the red cloud battle flag of the Tianji Empire could be seen clearly. Moreover, there was a dragon knight hovering above every main battleship of the Tianji Empire. Obviously, they were used to defend against the attacks of the magic crystal cannons. Zhang Wei said solemnly, 800 meters is still not enough. The light magic crystal cannons on the battleships need to be 500 meters to accurately fire. Continue forward. Feng Jixing leaned his long saber on the deck. He looked up at the sky and murmured, His Majesty Qin Jin, Her Highness Qin Yin, for the sake of Great Qin, for the sake of all living beings, please bless your subordinate, Feng Jixing, with victory in this battle. Chapter 827. However, before the Empire's warship could approach within 500 meters of them, the other party had already made a move. The Dragon Knights above the Tianji Empire's warship that was at the forefront displayed their respective abilities. Over a dozen of them activated their divine power at the same time, and the sky immediately darkened. Almost all of them were Saint Martial King realm experts. In the blink of an eye, the sea in front of them began to surge upwards, as if something was stirring. What happened? Feng Jixing was shocked. They're going to attack first. Zhang Wei's face was aghast as he shouted, Helmsman, turn left quick. Dodge their attacks from the depths of the sea. The helmsman hurriedly turned the wheel. Just at this moment, a loud ping pim 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 pim. In a single exchange, at least 20 Imperial warships had been wiped out. The air was piercingly cold, and the dimensional wind blades from different dimensions were wreaking havoc. The warships of the Empire were still being damaged, and almost all the soldiers were scared out of their wits. Only now did they realize that they were not fighting mortals, but gods. How infuriating! Feng Jixing was so angry that the veins on his face bulged. He abruptly leaped out of the warship and waved his two sabers in the air. The Crimson Phoenix and the Azure Dragon instantly condensed into two pillars of light, one of flames and the other of wind. They swept up a large amount of seawater and formed a huge storm. Under Feng Jixing's loud shout, the storm swung towards his opponent. Hong! The storm tore open the sea surface like a sharp cone, directly tearing a warship at the forefront of the Tianji Empire into pieces. The flames raged, and the soldiers were reduced to ashes in the air. The attack continued to move forward with unstoppable momentum, heading straight for the opponent's main warship. On the dragon's neck, a person smiled proudly and waved the spear in his hand. Buzz! The seawater trembled, and a water screen rose rapidly from the bottom of the sea. It was like a piece of cloth blocking in front of Feng Jixing. It quickly solidified into an ice wall, and collided with Feng Jixing's saber energy. The two of them instantly disappeared. Feng Jixing. The dragon rider smiled. The commander of the Great Qin Imperial Army is indeed not simple. However, you are still too young. You are no match for me, Lin Tongtian. He was Lin Tongtian. His broken arm had regrown, and no one knew what method he used. His cultivation seemed to have completely recovered as well. A Saint Martial King of the 45th Heavenly Abode was personally supervising the battle. It was enough to show how much importance the Tianji Empire placed on this battle. Pointing the frozen ice spear forward, Lin Tongtian shouted, "Full speed ahead, attack!" Hua hua hua. Sails rose one after another, and the speed of the Tianji Empire's warships instantly doubled at least. On the main warship, Zhang Wei gripped his sword and roared, "Give the order! Fire the magic crystal cannons! Archers, prepare for close combat!" This time, the order was given through the war drums. Amidst the intense beating of the war drums, the magic crystal cannons set up at the bow of the warships started to fire. Boom boom boom. Purple mushroom clouds surged on the surface of the sea. Airwaves shot out in all directions and mixed together, shaking all the warships. The sky shook and the earth shook, as if the end of the world had arrived. Amidst the fire clouds, the Tianji Empire's warships in the first row were almost undamaged. Under the protection of the Dragon Imperial Battle Circle, the magic crystal cannons couldn't hurt them at all. However, the warships in the back row that didn't have the protection of the Dragon Riders suffered a lot of damage. Many of them were broken into pieces. Once they were directly bombarded by the magic crystal cannons, they would only leave a pile of burning wreckage on the surface of the water. However, unexpectedly, the Tianji Empire's combat power and bravery far exceeded Feng Jixing and Qin Yan's expectations. After advancing at full speed, the warships of both sides started to cross each other. The warships engaged in close combat, and this wasn't the attack method that the magic crystal cannons were good at. Use the hook lock. Lin Tongtian rode on the giant dragon and circled in the sky. He shouted, "Hook it and build a bridge. Attack!" Before he finished his sentence, the hook lock had already shot out from the warships of both sides and closed in rapidly. Meanwhile, the parapet of the Tianji Empire's warships stretched out wooden sticks to block the hook lock, preventing the opponent from getting close. Wooden planks flew up and were placed between the two warships. In the blink of an eye, the soldiers of the Tianji Empire rushed over with their steel knives. Get lost! A Chiliarch of the Qin Empire waved his long knife, and his fiery fighting energy whizzed out, slashing 3 enemies to the bottom of the ship. However, he didn't have the time to wave a second time. An ice ray fell from the sky. The ice-freezing spear pierced through his chest, and the spearhead even pierced into the deck. Wood chips flew everywhere. Lin Tongtian, who was in the air, raised his hand and withdrew the spear. The spear flew back quickly. Release the arrows. The 10-man captain on the warship was trembling all over, but he still commanded loudly. The soldiers all fired their arrows. However, how could the arrows of mortals penetrate Lin Tongtian's protective divine power? Moreover, there was also the dragon defense spiral. When the arrows came into contact with the dragon defense spiral, they were all bounced off. You're courting death. Lin Tongtian laughed loudly. With a roar, the power of frost from all directions surged towards his body. In the next moment, the ice-freezing spear unleashed a divine spear ray with a radius of at least 1 meter. It pierced through the body of the warship and created a huge hole. Seawater gushed in crazily, and miserable cries could be heard. The sailors and soldiers in the cabin were most likely dead. Swoosh! A few hundred meters away, the Scarlet Phoenix blade swept past, and the indestructible dimensional wind split a huge hole in a warship. However, this warship was too big, and Feng Jixing's blade could not destroy it at all. He quickly followed up with another 2 slashes, and each slash was at full strength. After 3 slashes, he had to rest for a while to recover his divine power. Chu Chu and Ouyang Yan flew close to the surface of the sea, sending flames and gales into the enemy's warship. In the blink of an eye, the flames were raging. They could not fly too high, or they would become the targets of the enemy's dragon knights. After all, with Lin Tongtian and Su Chuan, the 2 great dragon knights, the control of the air was clearly not in the hands of the Qin Empire. The flames on the surface of the sea soared into the sky, and both sides fell into a chaotic battle. The magic crystal cannons on the warship fired every few minutes, and it did not distinguish between friend and foe. At this moment, it was difficult to distinguish between friend and foe, and they could only try their best to kill the enemy. The debris of the warship was everywhere on the surface of the sea, and the screams and howls of soldiers could be heard everywhere. However, neither side retreated. This was the first battle, and it was also a battle with far-reaching significance. Whoever lost would be passive in the following battles. Bang! The collision of the fortress ship split an iron-skinned battleship of the Tianji Empire into 2. Zhang Wei stood on the ship, covered in blood from head to toe. The saber in his hand was wreathed in flames. Then he roared, "Keep rowing! Charge forward at full speed! Destroy their flagship! Archers, aim at the nearest dragon knight, and switch to white diamond arrows." Zhang Wei saw clearly that the dragon knight did not know how to use the dragon defense spin, and his mount's abdomen was already injured. It seemed to have been attacked by a spear, and blood was flowing. Puffed, puffed, puffed. The archers on the main warship of the Qin Empire were all elite archers selected from the Imperial Army, and their arms could release 250 pounds of force. Coupled with the sharpness of the white diamond arrowheads, most of these arrows pierced through the dragon's armor, and the whole arrow shot into the dragon's abdomen. In an instant, the dragon could no longer fly, and it fell into the sea with a cry. On the dragon's back, the young dragon knight's face was covered in blood. He waved his dragon spear angrily and shouted, "Bastards, I will kill you all!" Pong. As soon as he raised his head, a shield hit his face. It was the heavy shield in Zhang Wei's hand. In an instant, the young dragon knight was already dizzy. He was only at the Holy King realm, and after being seriously injured by the cannons and arrows, he could no longer maintain his strength after being hit by Zhang Wei. Die. Zhang Wei raised his blade horizontally, and a head flew up. No one would have thought that the first dragon knight on the battlefield would be killed by Zhang Wei. Continued to rush forward. Zhang Wei raised his blood-stained blade horizontally, stood on the dragon's body, and pointed to the front. Cut their flagship at the waist quickly. But suddenly, a powerful flame fell from the sky. It was Su Chuan. Almost using all his divine power, Su Chuan's attack penetrated the entire fortress ship in an instant. The flame of the muddy fire blade surged, burning all the soldiers on the warship into ashes, and the whole ship was also burning quickly. Zhang Wei was completely stunned, and endless hatred surged in his eyes. Be asterisk starred. Be asterisk starred. Bang. With a loud sound, a fortress ship in the distance launched the magic crystal cannon. It just so happened that the Tianji Empire's flagship did not have the protection of the Dragon Knight, and it was instantly turned into ashes by the magic crystal cannon. The powerful shock wave of the flame swept over, and Zhang Wei's body fell into the sea, sinking continuously. But in the chaotic battle, no one could take care of each other, and no one knew whether he was dead or alive. The battle lasted for nearly 4 hours in the blink of an eye, and the sea became purgatory on earth. Ignite the black beach oil and hit their ships. No one knew who shouted like this, and suddenly, the ships of the Qin Empire were ignited in flames, rushing into the enemy's fleet from all directions, and the fire kept splashing. This tragic sea battle made many parents lose their sons, and many wives lose their husbands. When the afterglow of the setting sun swept across the sea, the flames of war had gradually subsided. Feng Jixing's entire body was covered in blood. The 2 sabers in his hands looked as though they were fished out from a pool of blood. He sat dejectedly on a warship that had a huge hole in its deck. He looked at the Tianji Empire's warships that were retreating into the distance. They still had at least half of their strength left. As for their side, it was obvious that they didn't have much left. The attack of the Dragon Knight's dragon breath was simply the nemesis of the fortress ship. Zhang Wei, General Zhang Wei. A soldier shouted from the side, and someone saw Zhang Wei's body floating up from the sea. Chu Chu floated down, carried Zhang Wei's body and said, "He's still breathing. Where's the military doctor? Hurry up and treat him. He can still be saved." Feng Jixing wiped the blood that had seeped into his eyes in a pathetic manner. "Your Highness, Prince Xian," Qin Yan said from behind. "Are we retreating back to Blue Wind Port?" Chapter 828. The tragic naval battle lasted for nearly 5 hours. Whether Feng Jixing was willing to admit it or not, the Empire had already lost this naval battle. Almost all of the fortress ships were lost, and only a few of the Swan and Iron ships were left. In this battle, at least 100,000 Empire warriors were buried in the East Sea. After this battle, the Empire was no longer able to compete with the Tianji Empire for the sovereignty of the sea. Swoosh swoosh. 2 figures swept across the sky. It was Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi. "We are late." Looking at the wreckage in the sea, Lin Muyu's face was pale. She slowly landed on the deck and said, "Brother Feng, how are you?" "I'm fine." Feng Jixing struggled to stand up. However, his divine power and stamina were already exhausted. His body shook violently. Lin Muyu hurriedly went forward to support him. However, she found that Feng Jixing's arm was full of wounds. His armor was soaked with blood. He was a God realm expert. How could he be injured to this extent? You are back? Feng Jixing smiled sadly. We lost. Lin Muyu furrowed his brows and said, the Tianji Empire used a portion of the Longji army's forces as a decoy to pin me and Little Shi down in the 8 wastelands. We miscalculated. This is my fault. Feng Jixing shook his head slowly. No, you did nothing wrong. I am useless. I actually lost this battle so thoroughly. Stop talking. Hurry up and rescue the soldiers who fell into the water. Save them in time. Okay. It was not until late at night that the battered fleet returned from the East Sea. They rescued all the people who could be saved. At least the corpses on the sea were unable to be saved. They could only be buried in the deep sea. The night in the Blue Wind Harbor was indescribably cold. The sea wind whistled, and also brought the cries from the barracks in the distance. Many people lost their companions and close friends. Moreover, more people could not see any hope of survival. Such a strong opponent seemed to be doomed to failure and death. The morale of the army is in chaos. In the central tent, Feng Jixing said in a low voice with a tired expression. Lin Muyu remained silent. After a while, she stood up and said, since we can't win a naval battle, we'll have to prepare for a land battle. Pass down my order. All the legions are to rest for 3 days and prepare for battle. Are the battle statistics not done yet? A clerk said respectfully. Yes, Your Highness. Read. Yes. The clerk's hand that was holding on to the book slightly trembled as he said. This battle was named the Blue Wind Sea Battle. Our army had 281 ships sunk and 74 damaged. 743 ironclad warships had been sunk and 198 damaged. 11 Tau warships had been sunk and 27 damaged. 1747 ships had been sunk and self-destructed, and 114 ships had been damaged. Lin Muyu's heart sank. She felt a little dizzy. She raised her hand and said, continue reading the number of casualties. Yes. The clerk's voice became much softer as he said. In this battle, 7 captains and 84 kiliarchs were killed. The total number of dead soldiers is more than 145,000, 70,000 wounded, and about 300 captives. The battlefield is too chaotic, so these records are only estimates and cannot be completely confirmed. Your Highnesses, the casualty barracks are full, and the medicine brought by the Elixir Division will run out in 7 days. We will have to transfer more from Lanyan City. Got it. Go do it. Lin Muyu waved her hand and gestured for the clerk to leave. Feng Jixing raised his head. His eyes were a little red. He said, everyone, let's discuss what we should do next. Beili Tsang lowered his head and remained silent. As the commander of the Empire's navy, he was responsible for this crushing defeat. Su Yu bit her red lips, but there was nothing she could do. The commander of the National Garrison Army, Tang Zhen, and the saintess of the demon race, Ling Huyen, also remained silent. They did not participate in the Blue Wind Sea battle, but this battle was equivalent to the arrival of a nightmare for them. Finally, the third-generation old minister Zheng Yifan coughed and said, other than preparing for war, there is no other way. If the Tianji Empire's army disembarks from the 3 major ports, we will not be able to stop them. The only thing we can do now is to defend the major cities and clear the fields. As long as we defend the cities and deprive the Tianji Empire's army of supplies and food, they will not be able to prolong the war. Zheng Yifan's words made everyone's eyes light up. At this moment, it seemed that only his words could give people hope. That's true. But if the Tianji Empire's army disembarks and they want to attack any of the cities, with the power of hundreds of dragon knights, I'm afraid we will not be able to defend any of the cities in the 3 northern provinces. Feng Jixing said indifferently, which also poured a bucket of cold water on everyone's hope. Ling Huyen looked at Lin Muyu and asked, Your Highness, do you have any ideas? Lin Muyu's mind was in a mess. No. Is there any news from the Seven Seas province? Not yet, Suer said. Even if there is a war there, it will take at least 2 days for the news to reach us. Is there any news from the Tianji Empire's main fleet? Lin Muyu asked again. No. Su Yu shook her head again. Su Yu shook her head again. The Warhawk scouts we sent seem to be in danger. It's easy for a dragon knight to kill a Warhawk scout. Maybe we shouldn't have sent scouts to spy on the military. They're just going to die in vain. Lin Muyu was silent for a while, then said, "All right, go back and rest. Tomorrow morning, the army will break camp and return to Winterfrost City." Yes. It seemed that there was no better way than this. The next morning, when Tang Xiaoxi opened the door to Lin Muyu's room, she was shocked by his appearance. His eyes were bloodshot, and his expression was dejected. There was no trace of the handsome appearance of one of the four heroes of Lan Yan. "Muyu, you didn't sleep the whole night?" Tang Xiaoxi was distressed. "I couldn't sleep." Lin Muyu put on his armor and looked at the water in the basin. He said, "I thought for the whole night, but I couldn't think of any feasible way. We can only be passive and watch as the Tianji Empire nibbles away at the territory that father entrusted to us." Tang Xiaoxi pursed her red lips and gently hugged him from behind. She said softly, "Don't scare me like this. You are driving yourself crazy. I beg you, don't do this." Lin Muyu smiled. "When Xiao-yin was here, I could always think of a good way. But now that Xiao-yin is not here, I seem to have lost my soul and become a useless person. I even feel sorry for myself, for being such a useless person." "Don't say it, don't say it." Tang Xiaoxi's tears flowed out of her eyes. At this moment, a report came from outside. The herald knelt respectfully on the bluestone outside the steps and said, "Your Highness, there is a report. Last night, the Tianji Empire's beast cavalry attacked Tongtian Province's Mu Commandery. This is a letter asking for help from the Mu Commandery. It was sent about 8 hours ago. His Highness Prince Zhong asked if we should send reinforcements." Lin Muyu trembled, and a chill rose from the bottom of her heart. She said, "There is no need. Mu Commandery has already fallen. Pass down the order to immediately mobilize 50,000 cavalrymen from the Longdan army camp and rush to Tongtian City. Now that they have taken Mu Commandery, Tongtian City will be next." "Yes." After the herald left, Lin Muyu fell to the corner of the room absent-mindedly. Her body trembled unconsciously and her face was pale as if she was seriously ill. She murmured, "Why are they in Mu Commandery? Why are they in Mu Commandery? They split up their troops." Tang Xiaoxi bent down and hugged her pitiful lover. She said, "From the beginning, they have decided to split up their troops to open up Tongtian Province." Lin Muyu's eyes were blank. "We can't lose Tongtian City. Once we lose Tongtian City, the hub of the 4 provinces in the north and south will be cut off. The eastern territory of the empire will be finished. We can't lose it. We can't lose it. Xiaoxi, prepare the horses. We will go with the Longdan army camp to reinforce Tongtian City. Maybe we can make it in time." Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were gentle, but when she looked at Lin Muyu's appearance, she felt as if a knife was twisting in her heart. The disparity between the strength of the enemy and her side almost made her collapse. A spring rain fell on the eastern territory of the empire. The city of Mu Commandery was full of pear blossoms, as bright and beautiful as fireflies in the daytime. But other than the fragrance of pear blossoms, there was also a faint smell of blood in the air. It was the smell of slaughter. Even the pear blossoms on the roadside were splashed with scarlet. In the city, a dense mass of tiger-leopard cavalry protected a group of people on horseback as they moved slowly. The person surrounded by the crowd was very burly, wearing a golden cloak. It was the marshal of the Tianji Empire, one of the 62nd level heavenly Saint Martial gods, Bai Minghuan, the younger brother of the emperor. Bai Minghuan looked disdainfully at the battlefield that was being cleaned up on both sides. Countless corpses of the defending soldiers were piled up together, blood mixed with rain, flowing into the ditches. The commander on the side smiled. "Marshal, we have taken the city in a flash. Maybe if we have a massacre to reward the army, it will boost the morale of the soldiers." Bai Minghuan smiled. "Commander Custer wants to massacre the city. It's just a suggestion." "Oh." Bai Minghuan looked to the other side. It was a young man dressed like a scholar. He wore a white cloak and looked very elegant. He said, "Gong Shangming, what do you think?" This man was the #1 strategist under Bai Minghuan's command. Gong Shangming smiled and said, "It's easy to take the city, but hard to win the people's hearts. Marshal, His Majesty has always won people over with virtue. Since we want to take over the broken tripod realm, we have to win people over with virtue. We can't let the people of the broken tripod realm be afraid of us. Otherwise, I'm afraid we will lose another city after taking one." "Oh." Bai Minghuan smiled. "Sir, please enlighten me." Gong Shangming cupped his fists and said, "Put up a notice to restrain the army. Don't bully the people. Also, take away the land of the former vassals and give it to the people. This way, the people's hearts and the city will belong to the Tianji Empire." "Good." Bai Minghuan was full of praise. "Sir, one person is like 100,000 soldiers." Gong Shangming replied respectfully, "Marshal, you flatter me. I think we should set off to attack Sky-Piercing City as soon as possible. The faster we move, the less time Lin Muyu has to react. Sky-Piercing City is a strategic location for the military. Seizing Sky-Piercing City is equivalent to cutting off one of Lin Muyu's arms." "Good. Listen to Sir. Tell the army to move out after eating and drinking. Attack Sky Connect City at full speed." "Yes." On the side, Custer nodded, but there was a trace of coldness in his eyes when he looked at Gong Shangming. Chapter 829. Sky Province, Whisker Harbor. Spring thunder rumbled, and the thunder was mixed with the loud noise of magic crystal cannons. Purple mushroom clouds rose from the sea, illuminating the coast. Dongtian County, Whisker Harbor's county city. At this moment, countless commoners of Dongtian County swarmed the coast, raising their heads to look at the soaring flames in the east. They all knew that it was the army of Sky Province, an army of 100,000 led by the white-robed Imperial Forest, Marquis of Tranquil Sea, Yao Yuan. The news of the defeat at the Blue Wind Sea battle had yet to arrive, and the people of Dongtian County were still hoping that Yao Yuan could bring them a victory, and news of peace and prosperity. The flames burned on the surface of the sea for a long time, and even the roars of giant dragons could be heard in the sea breeze. However, many people simply did not know how the battle on the surface of the sea was. It was too far, and they could not see clearly. "Quiet down, don't push." On the shore, a young centurion holding a spear shouted, "Everyone, don't push, or else the people in front will fall into the sea. Don't worry, Lord Marquis is one of the 5 marquises of the empire, and is the white-robed Imperial Forest of Her Highness the Empress. He will definitely win this battle. Everyone, please go home now. If you don't go home, our victorious army will not be able to disembark." Among the crowd, many people expressed their doubts, and started to discuss. "I heard from those merchants that the Blackstone Empire's army is unusually strong. Their people are vicious and cruel, but I don't know if it's true." "That's right. I heard that the people of the Blackstone Empire love to plunder. If the Marquis is really defeated, we will all suffer." "Who said that? The Marquis will not be defeated. How can our 100,000 navy and magic crystal cannons not be a match for those Eastern barbarians?" "That's right. Don't listen to their nonsense. Sky Province will definitely be defended. Long live Marquis of Tranquil Sea. Long live the Qin Empire." It was unknown who took the lead, but in the blink of an eye, the harbor was filled with shouts of "Long live the Empire! Long live the Marquis of Tranquil Sea!" Everyone was shouting themselves hoarse, their mouths parched, and their tongues parched. It was as if they could use their voices to exchange for victory. Meanwhile, the soldiers stationed in the harbor were somewhat helpless. As soldiers, it was their natural duty to obey orders. However, they had also heard some accurate news from Dragon-Shaped Island. The Iha Kingdom had been destroyed. Long Qianlin and Ding Shi, these 2 old enemies, had died in battle. The Iha Kingdom's nearly 200,000 soldiers had been effortlessly wiped out by the Blackstone Empire's navy. What could the Empire do? What could the 100,000 provincial troops in the hands of the pacifying Sea Marquis? Compared to the civilians, these soldiers had more anxiety and fear in their eyes. If the Blackstone Empire was really as cruel as the rumors said, then as long as Yao Yuan's army was defeated, the entire Sky Province would suffer a calamity. Perhaps even the entire Southridge would be engulfed in the flames of war. All the way until midnight, there were still at least 1,000 civilians waiting on the coast for news of the battle. Most of them had gone home to sleep. To them, it didn't matter who was the emperor. All they had to do was to be obedient citizens, fishing, farming, weaving, and paying taxes. That was enough. Finally, the dark sea lit up. Some were the light of lanterns, while others were blazing. Yao Yuan's army had returned, and the sea was covered in flames. The Marquis has returned. On the shore, a chiliarch said excitedly, "Our army has returned in triumph." The mayor of the town, who was dressed in embroidered robes and had a goatee, said joyfully. His town was the one closest to the coast. If they had been defeated, his town would have been the first to be attacked by the invaders. Something's not right. On the watchtower of the harbor, a centurion squinted his eyes and looked into the distance. He said in a low voice, "When we left, we had nearly 500 warships. Why did less than 50 return? Moreover, many of the warships' flames have not been extinguished. What's going on?" "Milord, look." One of the soldiers pointed at the sea and saw a fast ship speeding towards them like an arrow. It was a ship. With a bang, the ship crashed into a wooden pillar supporting the harbor. A battered and exhausted imperial soldier jumped onto the ground and shouted, "The Marquis has ordered us to be on our guard. We have lost, and the Blackstone Empire is coming. Magicite cannons and crossbows. Prepare to aim at the enemy ships behind us and prevent them from reaching the shore." Heavens! The garrison troops on the shore were terrified out of their wits. When they looked carefully, there was indeed a dense expanse of flames following behind Yao Yuan's army, and when they looked carefully, it seemed as if it covered the entire eastern sea. The members of the Darkstone Empire had annihilated Yao Yuan's main force, yet their main force practically didn't suffer much damage. Moreover, the Blackstone Empire's warships were in hot pursuit. They were less than a kilometer away from Yao Yuan's army. With such a huge force, the magicite cannons couldn't be calibrated at all. "Archers, prepare. Fire." On the shore, bunches of firewood were ignited. The flames soared into the sky, illuminating the nervous faces of the young soldiers. The majority of the soldiers in Yao Yuan's army were newly enlisted. In the years when the Dragon's Courage army fought against the demons, Yao Yuan's army didn't participate in any battles. At most, they only carried out missions to eliminate wandering mercenaries and bandits. These young soldiers had never seen such a grand battle scene before. So many of them were scared silly. The young captaincy walked to the shore, his eyes reflecting the flames on the sea. His hand on the hilt of his sword slightly trembled as he muttered, "Kings of the Empire, protect us, prepare. Start the battle. Men, sound the bugle. The cavalry on the ground will prepare to meet the invading enemy and protect the Empire's territory." The warships in the distance were getting closer and closer. The ships under Yao Yuan's command had already entered the range of the magicite cannons. The sails fluttered as they rapidly approached the shore. But because they were in such a rush, many of the warships directly crashed into the cork that was docked in the harbor. Flames immediately spread out. Everyone was busy as they carried buckets of water to extinguish the fire. But it was too late to extinguish the fire. "Men, the Marquis is here." On the dragon-headed warship, a group of people quickly supported a person down. It was the Marquis of the Tranquil Sea, Yao Yuan. At this moment, Yao Yuan was already unconscious. His white-purple robe was full of bloodstains, and the breastplate on his chest was pierced through. It seemed like he had been hit by a spear, but this spear had pierced through the other side of his chest. Otherwise, he would have died long ago. "Where is the medical officer?" A captaincy whose face was covered in blood angrily roared. "Where are the people from the spirit medicine department? Quickly come and treat the Marquis quickly." In the barracks at the harbor, the sound of horse hooves could be heard as dozens of white-robed staff of the spirit medicine department rushed over. They hurriedly stopped Yao Yuan's bleeding, applied medicine, and wiped his wounds to prevent infection. At the same time, the sound of dense footsteps could be heard. Many soldiers carrying heavy shields and pikes arrived at the shore, preparing to defend against the enemy. In the distant sky, dragon roars could be heard. The warships on the surface of the sea were spread out. Clearly, the Blackstone Empire did not plan to just disembark from the port. They wanted to disembark from all sides. The young captaincy looked at Yao Yuan's injuries while looking up in horror at the enemy's warships that were only a few hundred meters away. The magicite cannons on the shore continued to wreak havoc, creating waves that were dozens of meters high. The warships of the Blackstone Empire were torn to pieces. But there were just too many ships. Just the dozens of magicite cannons on the port were unable to stop them all. While the magicite cannons were cooling down, the enemy had already traveled several hundred meters and directly reached the shore. Bang bang bang, the ironclad warships of the Blackstone Empire crashed into the port one after another. In the next moment, gangplanks fell one after another. Roars came from the sea as a large number of Blackstone Empire soldiers began to disembark. They brandished their axes and long blades as they charged into the crowd of Yao Yuan's army. Both sides quickly engaged in a bloody battle. The young captaincy was almost out of his wits. At this time, his arm suddenly tightened. He looked down and saw that calm sea Marquis Yao Yuan had woken up. He grabbed his arm and said, "Longevity, have their warships reached the shore?" "Yes, Marquis." "Are all the warships piled up together?" "Yes." "Pass down the order." Yao Yuan panted crazily as if he would not be able to catch his breath at any time. He said, "Pass down my order. Throw the black beach oil that we have prepared with the catapults. All the archers will change to fire arrows and set their warships on fire. After they are burned to ashes, we will not have a good time, but they will also not have a good time." Longevity was slightly surprised. It turned out that Yao Yuan already knew that the enemy would come ashore. "Yes, but Marquis, if the enemy's warships are set on fire, the entire port will become a sea of fire. It's fine." Yao Yuan's breathing was incomparably hurried. "If we can make them lose a portion of their forces, let alone one port, even 10 of them would be worth it. Send someone to escort me back to Linghan City. In addition, order all the troops in the province to abandon the cities they are guarding and go to Linghan City. As long as we hold Linghan City, we will be able to wait for reinforcements. Quickly go." "Yes." In the air, barrels of black beach oil fell into the water like rain. Although the Blackstone Empire's warships were protected by the Dragon Knights, the Dragon Imperial Battle Spiral could not stop the black beach oil. Even if the barrels exploded on top of the Dragon Imperial Battle Spiral, the black beach oil still fell like rain on the deck of the warships. "Pa! What is that smell?" The Blackstone Empire soldiers waiting to go ashore cursed. "What a stinky smell! What the hell is this?" In the next moment, a dense number of fire arrows shot down from the tall watchtowers of the port, immediately setting the ship on fire. Fuck. In the air, a person wielding a long saber was the commander of the Ashen Flame Corps, Fu Yu. He raised the saber in his hand and shouted, "Don't put out the fire. Soldiers whose warships are on fire, jump into the sea and swim ashore for this commander to kill to his heart's content. If the warships are on fire, then so be it. We have no intention of going back this time. Remember to protect the warhorses. Don't let too many of them die." "Yes." Chapter 830. Pung pung pung. Shields fell to the ground one after another, and the chilly arch at the back roared. "Shield wall, spear forest, push forward. Push these eastern barbarians back into the sea, quick." Everyone roared, and spears pierced through the gaps between the shields, piercing into the bodies of the Blackstone Empire soldiers. The shields formed an impenetrable wall, pushing a large group of enemies into the sea. Following this, they moved the shields away and wildly stabbed with their spears. In the blink of an eye, the seawater was dyed red with blood. However, this did not change anything. There were already many Blue Flame Army troops on the two sides of Shatsea Harbor, and the Blackstone Empire's bear banner was raised into the sky. They planned to surround and annihilate the garrison of Shatsea Harbor. 1st and 2nd Battalions, stay behind and hold up the rear. The rest of you retreat with me. Brothers, it's time for you to die for Great Qin. Elder Captaincy's voice echoed through the air. He mounted his horse and quickly protected the tranquil sea Marquis, Yao Yuan, and the people from the spirit medicine and spirit fire divisions as they retreated. The sounds of fighting, roars, and screams mixed together, and the entire Shaanxi harbor was engulfed in flames. The commoners who were waiting for Yao Yuan's army to return had already fled, but with the invasion of the Blackstone Empire's army, where could they run to? This battle lasted all the way to the dawn of the next day. When the sun shone down on the land again, Shaanxi harbor had already been reduced to ashes. The wreckage of countless warships floated on the sea, and the smell of burnt flesh mixed with the smell of blood, causing people to feel nauseous. In the forest to the south of Shaanxi harbor, a large number of Blue Flame Army and Sea Mountain Army troops had gathered. Although they had gone through a night of naval battle, their war horses and mounts had not suffered too many losses. At the same time, the dragon riders in the distance had landed to rest, and the dragons were devouring the dead horses. To them, this was a heaven-sent delicacy. Gulp gulp. A fire dragon bit the horse into two halves. His brown eyes turned and looked at the person beside him. It was Fu Yu, the commander of the Ashen Flame Army. Lord Han Shu. Fu Yu smiled. Han Shu caressed the neck of the dragon he was riding on, his face filled with a lazy smile as he said, "Congratulations to Commander Fu Yu for achieving victory. In just one battle, you have almost completely wiped out the main force of the Qin Empire in Linhong Province. From what I see, the army that Yao Yuan led to escape with and the army of Linghan City would not exceed 50,000 people at most, while we still have a total of 300,000 valiant soldiers." Fu Yu laughed heartily and said, "This is all thanks to the help of the Blackstone Dragon Riders. Otherwise, I'm afraid that we would have lost a few teeth even if we tried to eat Yao Yuan. Speaking of which, this Yao Yuan is one of the white-robed imperial guards conferred by Qin Yin's father. He is indeed not simple. After losing the battle, he was still able to use fire to attack us and cause us to lose tens of thousands of soldiers. Humph. When I catch him, if I don't chop off his head and use it as a chamber pot, I won't be able to quench my hatred." Han Shu said, "Let's talk about the chamber pot later. Where does Commander Fu Yu plan to target next?" With a whoosh, Fu Yu unfurled a map of the Shattered Cauldron realm. Furthermore, it was a map made of cloud brocade. It was obvious that it was purchased from the hands of someone from the Empire at a high price. Sometimes, for the sake of money, one would not care about the beliefs of a nation. This was human nature. After thinking for a while, Fu Yu said, "This place is still close to 300 li away from Linghan City. With cavalry, it would take half a day, and infantry at least 2 days to arrive. Now that our military rations have been exhausted, the soldiers are eager for a reward. So, I don't plan to attack Linghan City at the first opportunity." "Oh. Then which city does Lord Commander plan to attack?" "Here." Fu Yu pressed his index finger on a black dot on the map and said, "Dongtian Prefecture. This prefecture city is less than 100 li away from us. If we march now, we can reach it by nightfall at the latest. The garrison of Dongtian Prefecture will not exceed 5,000. With the help of the dragon riders to open the city gates, we can take down Dongtian Prefecture without wasting a single soldier. This prefecture city has a population of close to 200,000, so it can be used as a gift to the front and middle armies. What does Lord Han Shu think?" "What do you mean by a gift?" Han Shu asked. "Beheading, drinking their blood, killing their children, and seizing their wives and daughters. This is the best gift to the soldiers of the Empire. You want to massacre the city?" Han Shu frowned. "Yes." Fu Yu smiled faintly. "This is a rule of the Blackstone Empire that has existed since ancient times. It cannot be abolished. I know that Lord Han Shu is an expert of the dragon riders and disdains such things, so I'm just informing you." Han Shu couldn't help but sneer. "It's fine. I don't want to interfere with the affairs of the Empire. If there is a need for the dragon riders to move out, Lord Fu Yu can just send a messenger. In that case, I will lead the dragon riders to the surroundings of Dongtian Prefecture and clear away the obstacles for Lord Commander." "Thank you, Lord Han Shu." Fu Yu beamed and turned to the 2 deputy commanders behind him. "Pass down my order. The 150,000 soldiers of the front and middle armies will rest for 2 hours. After eating and drinking their fill, they will march quickly. They must reach Dongtian Prefecture before nightfall. As long as we take down Dongtian Prefecture, they will be able to sleep on warm beds there and hug the women of Shattered Cauldron Realm. Yes, Commander. At dusk, the setting sun shone down on the earth like blood. The flag of the purple Yinhua fluttered in the wind above Dongtian Prefecture. The commoners in the city continued to farm as usual, but they didn't expect that a calamity was descending upon them. They didn't even inform the commoners of the retreat of the garrison army. This was Yao Yuan's order. Once the commoners were informed, it would definitely cause chaos and affect their retreat. As a result, there were only a few old veterans on the walls of Dongtian Prefecture. The oldest among them was already 60 years old. Their hands were trembling when they held on to their spears, let alone fighting in battle. Look, what's that? An old soldier pointed into the distance, and the other soldiers looked over as well. They saw many black figures moving about in the forest at the east of Dongtian County. Not long after, dust and dirt rose into the air and suffused the sky. A group of Darkstone Empire's beast cavalry seemed as if they had come from purgatory, and they were caught off guard. Quick, sound the bell. Yes. But before the bell could resound through the sky, the person ringing the bell had already been pierced through the throat by a sword. In the sky, a huge black figure circled around. The dragon rider on the back of the dragon looked disdainfully at the garrison soldiers on the city walls and said, "If you don't want to die, immediately open the city gates. Otherwise, I'll kill all of you." The group of veterans was so scared that they were dumbfounded, unable to move. What a bunch of trash! The dragon rider roared and sword light swept across the city walls. In the blink of an eye, dozens of veterans were all turned into corpses. The huge dragon let out a long roar and landed inside the city with the dragon rider, scaring the commoners into retreating. The dragon rider grabbed the reins and shouted, "It's up to you now." The huge dragon raised its neck and accumulated dragon flames. In the next moment, the flames rushed towards the city gates and continued to burn. A large hole was burned through the metal gates, and with a flash of sword light, the entire city gates were split into pieces. Outside the city, the beast riders quickly split into 3 streams of black water. One group entered the city, while the other 2 formed a pincer around the entire Dongtian Prefecture. Kill! A chiliarch with a sharp blade in his hand entered the city at the first moment, and slashed an old man pushing a wheelbarrow in half. Fresh blood splattered on the cabbages inside the wheelbarrow. It was a tragic sight. The people of Dongtian Prefecture were scared silly. Many people couldn't even remember what the previous battle was like. And now, this massacre had actually happened so suddenly. Hee. A beast rider urged his tiger leopard mount to bite off the head of a commoner man. He then shouted, "Don't swallow it, idiot. Spit it out quickly." The tiger leopard mount roared twice, shook its head, and spat out the head in its mouth. It was covered in blood. The beast rider conveniently picked up the head and tied the hair of the head to the neck of his mount. It swayed like a copper bell. This was a symbol of military merit. In the most primitive way of battle, one head represented 1 military merit. The sounds of killing rose and fell in the city. The entire Dongtian Prefecture had become a living hell. The 4 city gates were all sealed, and they couldn't run away. They could only hide in their homes and wait to be captured and killed one by one. Everyone kept quiet out of fear, and watched helplessly as their loved ones were beheaded one by one. On the streets, the heavy cavalry and infantry of the Ashen Flame Army entered the city, and the massacre became even more unrestrained. Almost every cavalry had a head hanging on their horse's neck. Some even had more than 10 heads. At the same time, those young women managed to escape this calamity. Their hands were tied, and they were led behind the war horses. There were at least 1, and at most 4 or 5. What awaited them was even more tragic. After the sky turned dark, Fuyu entered the city. He looked at the piles of burning corpses on the streets with a complacent expression on his face. This was because the people of the Ashen Flame Army were very happy. This represented the morale of the army, and Fuyu was very happy to see this scene. "Lord Commander." A captaincy walked forward respectfully and said with a smile, "The city lord's residence is already in our hands. That stubborn city guard general has already been killed by this subordinate. Lord, A banquet has already been prepared in the residence. We have left a chef behind. Hee hee. The culinary skills of the Shattered Cauldron realm are truly not simple. In addition, this subordinate has prepared 10 beautiful women for Lord. One of them is the daughter of the prefectural governor. I hope that Lord Commander will kindly accept them. Fu Yu's face turned red when he heard this. General Lu really understands me. Let's go to the city lord's residence. We won't return until we are drunk. In addition, send people to watch the city gates. The people of the Shattered Cauldron realm are naturally cunning. Don't let them sneak an attack on us. Yes. Captain C had a fawning expression. Lord Commander, don't worry. Yao Yuan has already been scared out of his wits by us. I dare say that in the entire Qin Empire, not a single army would dare to sneak an attack on our 150,000 strong army. Ha 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 ha. That's right, that's right. Let's go and see my beauties first. Yes. Chapter 831. The moonlight was like blood, and the ground was covered in flames. Cries could be heard from within the Dongtian commandery. The cries of women could be heard from within the residences, as well as the wild laughter of soldiers. Massive bonfires were lit on the streets, and cattle and sheep were roasted on the bonfires. The Blue Flame Army opened the commandery city's treasury and took out countless amounts of fine wine. As they drank, they hugged the women they had plundered and laughed. The wooden stakes on the side of the road had human heads pierced into them. These heads belonged to the city's defenders. On the other side, there were a few registration offices. The people in charge of the registration recorded the number of heads and buried them. Although the Blackstone Empire's army was barbaric and cruel, they knew that the corpses should be buried as soon as possible. Otherwise, a plague would inevitably spread in their territory. Moreover, according to the Blackstone Empire's rules, for every 3 cities seized, 1 would be slaughtered. Not only would this raise morale, they could also use the other 2 cities to replenish the population of the cities that had been slaughtered. However, the destruction of Dongtian County could no longer be changed. The earth was filled with cries, wails, and pleas for mercy, but nothing could be changed. The moment Yao Yuan decided to retreat to Linghan City, the fate of Dongtian County seemed to have been decided by the heavens. Beneath the eastern wall, a temporary tent flickered with light. Outside the tent, women were tied to trees. Their captors were centurions and chiliarchs, and every officer had at least 3 to 5 women as spoils of war. After enjoying them, they would be rewarded to their subordinates. Above the wall, a few figures stood majestically in the wind, wings of light faintly discernible behind their backs. It was the Battle Angel Corps. Is this a war in the mortal world? Lake was somewhat shocked as he looked at the hellish scene in the city. Dora laughed coldly. What else do you think a war is like? A young master from a noble family, like you, has probably never been close to a real war in your life, right? Terralyn frowned slightly. Are we just going to watch like this? It's just too cruel. Although it's reasonable to attack a city, such an inhuman atrocity will definitely be punished by the gods. Dora couldn't help but laugh. Terralyn, you're a god. Why don't you punish them? Don't forget that the Blackstone Empire is the wealth of the celestial pole continent, as well as the people of the Western Divine Realm. If you dare to recklessly attack them, the ruler and the 2 Lord Seraphim won't let you off. But Terralyn couldn't help but say, Sheen, say something. As battle angels, are we supposed to watch the beasts in front of us so mercilessly? Under the moonlight, Sheen's eyes were closed, and her eyelashes trembled slightly. Even her body was trembling. She was a god, and she could hear the countless blessings. She could hear the screams of all the young girls of the Dongtian commandery. She could feel the despair and pain. She lowered her head and clenched her fists. 2 streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. She could sense the connection between herself and this continent. She could even feel the pain and torment she was experiencing. Stop, Sheen whispered. What? Dora was stunned. Sheen, what did you say? I said stop. Sheen suddenly raised her voice. This shout was like an oracle, and a wave of power wrapped in flames and the law of light spread out with her as the center. Even Dora, Terralyn, and the others couldn't withstand it and retreated. How could the soldiers of the Blackstone Empire on the ground resist it? The soldiers closest to them, who were planting the heads, were shaken to the point where they bled from all 7 orifices. The tents not far away were all uprooted. All the middle and low-ranking officers looked over, dumbfounded. Boom. It was just a shout, but it actually crushed the houses, collapsed the city walls, and cracked the earth. Terralyn, Dora, Lake, and the others were all dumbfounded. Not long ago, Sheen's cultivation had far surpassed theirs. More than half of the Dongtian commandery was affected. Almost everyone stopped their evil deeds and looked towards the eastern wall. Sheen, Terralyn muttered. What's wrong with you? Sheen slowly shook her head and said, Stop them, stop them. Yes. The sound of horse hooves shook the road. In the distance, torches lit up. Fuyu's men had arrived. Fuyu was among them. When he approached, he was shocked. He had seen these war angels before. Lord Sheen, was it you who made that noise just now? Fuyu asked respectfully. Yes. Sheen closed her eyes and nodded. Release those women and children immediately. Otherwise, I will kill you immediately. Ayu. Fuyu was shocked. He didn't doubt the words of this level 7 golden-winged battle angel. She would indeed do it, and she had the ability to do it. However, Fuyu's subordinates with lower cultivation were unhappy. They couldn't feel the aura of Sheen's 50th level Grotto Heaven Godhead, nor could they feel the sharpness of the blazing eyes. They could only speak at once. Why? We risked our lives to take down the city, so why should we let go of the spoils of war? These are our gains. So what if you're angels from the divine realm? Aren't we your people? Aren't you taking our offerings from us? Sheen furrowed her brows, and her eyelashes trembled slightly. Golden flames began to spread from her body, and she was about to lose control of her anger. You have never been my people. Sheen suddenly said, Stop your violence immediately, you bunch of bugs. What did you say? A group of soldiers raised their weapons and roared. Our leader is also a god. The only difference is that he is a god from the lower realm. What right do you have to humiliate us like this? You dare to call us, the Empire's warriors, bugs? Who do you think you are? Wang. Sheen suddenly opened her palm and pointed it at the group of soldiers who were cursing the most fiercely. Shut up. If you don't shut up, you're going to curse. They were quite stubborn. Shut up. Fuyu hurriedly said. But it was too late. Sheen's palm glowed with light. With a hong sound, a pillar of light bloomed in the crowd. At least 200 soldiers were instantly devoured by the pillar of light. They turned into ashes, and not even their bones were left. Sheen. Terralyn suddenly stood in front of Sheen, blocking her eyes, and said, Lady Shiyen said to use the eyes of blazing light as little as possible. After all, it will only consume the power of your cultivation. We can deal with this group of ants. But now, the Blue Flame Army didn't dare to say anything. They all felt that this girl looked very weak, but that was not the case. She killed hundreds of people with a wave of her hand. This kind of power was not something a god of Fuyu's level could do. Dora frowned. Sheen, you killed the people of the Western Divine Realm. I'm afraid the Lord Ruler will be displeased if he hears about it. Is that so? Sheen's lips curled up slightly. Dora, are you going to tell on me? No, why should I? Dora gently opened her hand, and the light of the Fergus spear condensed. She smiled seductively and said, Since you have slaughtered the citizens of the Divine Realm and betrayed the Lord Juggernaut's divine decree, I have no choice but to execute you. Whoosh. The spear stabbed forward silently. It was so fast that even Terralyn and the others couldn't react. Whoosh. The power of the spear was so strong that it even pierced through the wall of space. Dimensional energy crackled. However, Dora's attack didn't successfully pierce through Sheen's neck. It only pierced the air. Huh? Dora suddenly pulled back the spear. However, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pull it back. Sheen had actually grabbed the spear's head. Dora, you have repeatedly offended your superiors. It's fine to kill you, right? Sheen abruptly exerted her strength and brandished the dig spear in her hand. Her blazing eyes instantly opened, and the piercing Dora could only close her eyes. She did not have the courage to meet Shiyin's gaze. Bang! Duo-La's body crashed into the city wall along with the dig's spear. Shattered city bricks flew everywhere, and under the endless compression of power, the city bricks were all turned into dust. The group of soldiers was stunned. This was a battle between gods, a realm that mortals could never hope to reach in their entire lives. Sheen squinted her blazing eyes and opened her palm. Golden flames swirled in her palm. Soon, a dazzling ice crystal appeared. It was a celestial dragon crystal. However, it was different from the celestial dragon crystal from before. It was more lethal and destructive. Dora was already injured. If she took another blow from the celestial dragon crystal, she would most likely lose her life. Wait! In the sky, a figure suddenly flashed by and raised his iron fist. Boom! The wall of the plane was shattered, and the cracking power tore apart the aura of the Eyes of Blazing Light's domain. And it couldn't resist it. Oh! Sheen couldn't help but be surprised. There was actually such an expert in this place? It was Han Shu, a sacred martial king with the cultivation of the 57th grotto heaven. Han Shu leaped down from the dragon's back lightly. However, the moment he saw the blazing eyes, he felt a chill in his heart. He hurriedly lowered his head and said respectfully, "Lord Sheen, Lord Dora is a god from the upper realm who came to the mortal world together with you. She is just a little stubborn. I hope Lord Sheen won't vent your anger on her. After all, Dora didn't commit any crimes that deserve to be killed. I, Han Shu, beg for mercy on behalf of Lord Dora. Please don't be angry, Lord Sheen." Sheen slowly closed his eyes and said, "Han Shu, do your words carry enough weight? This should be enough. I can spare Dora's life, but you must stop all the atrocities in Dongtian Prefectural City. Release all the women and children and stop the killing. Do you understand?" "Yes, I'll do it right away." Han Shu's face was ashen. He didn't even know why he, a sacred martial king with the 57th grotto heaven, would be so respectful to a girl with the 50th grotto heaven. Was it just because of the deep respect in his heart? Rustle, rustle. Amidst the rustling sounds, Dora held the dig's spear and crawled out of the hole in the city wall. She was in a sorry state. Luo Fei, who went forward to help her, was flung away by her. With a face full of resentment, she said, "Sheen, you win." Sheen remained silent. She raised her snow-white and flawless face and felt the bright moon in the sky. She quietly waited for the Pale Flame Army to release the captives. She didn't know why she did it, but she knew she had to do it. Chapter 832. The night breeze blew across the plains. After the harsh winter, the willow trees outside Heaven Connect City had turned green again. A dense cavalry formation swept across the official road and headed straight for Heaven Connect City. What made Lin Muyu relieved was that the purple Inghua flower war flag was still flying above Heaven Connect City, and not the red cloud war flag of the Tianji Empire. The city gate opened slowly, and a horse galloped in. It was Wei Chou. "Your Highness." Wei Chou's expression did not look good. He squeezed out a smile and said, "Your Highness and Princess Xi are finally here. If you didn't come, I would have abandoned the city." Lin Muyu did not say anything. Wei Chou's words were not alarmist, but the situation had indeed developed to this point. Facing the powerful Tianji Empire, it seemed that defending the city was not a rational choice. "Stop talking. Enter the city first and gather all the officers above the rank of captaincy to discuss the war." Yes. An hour later, King Qin's mansion was in a hubbub. The captaincy, deputy commander, and the executive officers of the various prefectures of Heaven Connect province had almost all arrived. Everyone had their own opinions, and they were arguing nonstop. "King Qin's Highness has arrived," the guard announced loudly. Everyone quieted down. Lin Muyu and Tang Xiaoxi walked side by side into the meeting hall from the side hall, while Wei Chou, Situ Sun, Situ Shui, and Feng Shi followed behind. This group of people was the real ruler of Heaven Connect province. "Greetings, King Qin. Greetings, Princess Xi. Greetings, Duke Wei." After everyone bowed, Lin Muyu raised her hand and said, "Dispense with the formalities. Map." Yes. The two captains held the map together, and their expressions were a little ugly. Obviously, they already knew a lot of things. I just arrived at Heaven Connect City. Tell me, how's the war going? Your Highness, 3 days ago, an army of the Tianji Empire's Liuji army came ashore from Hui Valley on the east coast. In just 4 hours, they took down Mu County and Qingzhou. In the following 3 days, they split into 2 groups, one from the west, and successively took down Qinglu County, Sangzhou County, Xiangzhou County, and so on. According to the news we received this morning, they began to attack Dingzhou's Shangyuan County last night. Shangyuan County is less than 200 li away from Tongtian City, which is very close to us. Lin Muyu fell silent. Wei Chou slammed his palm heavily on the table and said angrily, "Are all the garrisons in each region made of mud? A dignified imperial city had been taken down in just 4 hours? In just 3 days, Cheng Province, Xiangzhou Province, Dingzhou Province, and Song Province had been seized. Out of a total of 13 provinces in Heavenspan Province, 4 had been lost in 3 days. They were all a bunch of good-for-nothings." Are the people from Qingzhou and Xiangzhou here? Among the crowd of officials, 2 people walked out shakily and said in a trembling voice, "The patrol of Qingzhou Province, the patrol of Xiangzhou Province are... Take them away." Wei Chao's face was livid. "Your Highness, these incompetent people are not fit to be officials, what do you think?" Lin Muyu waved her hand and said, "Forget it, the Liuji army is too strong, it has nothing to do with them, just forfeit their salary for a year." "Yes, Your Highness," Situ Sun said. "The urgent matter at noon is what to do now, how to deal with the next attack of the Tianji Empire. Tomorrow night at the latest, they will definitely launch an attack on Heaven Connect City. Once we lose Heaven Connect City, I'm afraid the 6 provinces in the south, Luzhou, Junzhou, and Hangzhou will definitely not be able to defend." Wei Chou was the only one who had confronted the army of the Tianji Empire head-on. He thought for a moment and said, "Their Dragon Rider Regiment's tactics are too powerful, our magic crystal cannons are simply powerless. I am helpless in this regard." Situ Sun looked at Lin Muyu. Everyone's eyes also fell on him. "Your Highness, please say something," a county hall advisor said carefully. Tang Xiaoxi's eyes were like water. She looked at Lin Muyu worriedly. Everyone was helpless against the tactics of the Tianji Empire. Could it be that Lin Muyu had a way? She was really worried that such a huge pressure would completely crush him. After nearly half a minute, the smoke from the incense burner in the hall lingered around Lin Muyu. He finally raised his head and said indifferently, "How many troops are there in Heaven Connect City?" "There are more than 50,000 people in the Longdan army camp. In addition to the 100,000 people that Your Highness has brought, in addition, there are the garrison troops from the various provinces. The total number is about 130,000. Wei Chou said respectfully. "Enough." "What's enough?" Wei Chou was stunned. Lin Muyu glanced at everyone and said, "I've thought about it for a long time. Although the Tianji Empire's Dragon Knights are powerful, their numbers are limited. They can't guarantee that every scattered army has the protection of the Dragon Knights. Moreover, they have conquered 4 provinces in a row, so they will definitely send troops to guard, and they have won all the battles along the way, so they must be very arrogant and domineering." One of the garrison generals was stunned. "Your Highness, you want to attack?" "Yes, turn the tables. If we blindly defend, and fight a positional battle with them with the protection of the Dragon Knights, we will lose completely. Instead of that, it is better to hide ourselves." "Hide?" Situ Sun was confused. "How do we hide?" "The cavalry will circle around, and when their head enters Tong Province, we will hit their tail, and when they turn back to bite, we will hit their waist, and attack where there are fewer Dragon Knights. Everyone will carry enough magic crystal crossbows, and use them to attack ordinary troops without the protection of the Dragon Knights. We won't be at a disadvantage, right?" Wei Chao's eyes lit up. "Your Highness's move is brilliant." "No." An old voice came from the crowd. It was the Earl of Dingzhou, who had guarded Dingzhou for many generations. He walked forward with the support of his walking stick and said, "Your Highness's plan is brilliant, but it is a dangerous move. If the Tianji Empire doesn't split up and they concentrate their forces to attack Tongtian City, then this city that we have managed for many years will probably be destroyed in the blink of an eye." Lin Muyu said, The Earl of Dingzhou is correct, but if we don't split up and use harassment tactics, Tongtian City will probably fall, and we will also lose a large number of soldiers. The Earl of Dingzhou trembled all over and said, although the King of Qin is unparalleled in both literature and martial arts, he is taking human lives too lightly. Once Tongtian City falls, how many people will die? Is this what your highness wants to see? What good idea does the Earl of Dingzhou have? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. A bright light shot out of the Earl of Dingzhou's eyes as he said, order all the armies in the provinces to gather and raise the royal banners to pretend to be the main force of our army. There is a cliff between Tong Province and Dingzhou called Greedy Wolf Cliff. It is easy to defend and difficult to attack. As long as we hold Greedy Wolf Cliff, we will be able to stop the Tianji Empire's attack. We can hold it for at least 3 to 5 days, and we can use these 3 to 5 days to move the people in Tongtian City. What does your highness think of my suggestion? Lin Muyu thought for a moment, and then raised her head. Very well, then I will appoint the Earl of Dingzhou as the commander of the provincial armies. I will leave the moving of the people in Tongtian City, and the blocking battle at Greedy Wolf Cliff to you. The Earl of Dingzhou was overjoyed. He raised his hands and said, I will not disappoint your highness. Lin Muyu turned and said, all right, everyone go and make arrangements. The Longdan army camp will be split into 10 groups of 10,000 people. Bring enough rations and magic crystal cannons, and leave Tongtian City at night. Tomorrow, everyone will start fighting on their own. In half a month, if Tongtian City still stands, we will meet there. If Tongtian City has fallen, we will meet at the Luo River Estuary Fortress. Yes, your highness. In the gilded corridor, the palace lanterns flickered with a faint light. A row of guards stood motionless like statues. Your highness. Situ-sun rubbed his nose and said, just now that old man, the Earl of Dingzhou, was so arrogant and publicly criticized your highness's strategy. Why didn't your highness take the opportunity to kill him? I have long said that the Earl of Dingzhou preyed on the people and amassed a lot of wealth in Dingzhou. Yesterday when he came to Tongtian City, there were 10 chests filled with jewels and gold. It's not that I don't want to, it's that I can't. Lin Muyu explained, the Flowing Spirit Army is coming aggressively, and we are in need of people. Although the Earl of Dingzhou is greedy, he can be considered useful among the officials in Tongtian Province. As long as he can block the main force of the Tianji Empire at Tanling Cliff, this will be a great service for us. I understand. Lin Muyu turned to look at Situ-sun and Wei Chou. We set off tonight. You two will each lead an army. Afterwards, you will have to act according to the situation. Remember, you must avoid the main force of the Flowing Spirit Army as much as possible. No matter what method you use, whether it is a diversion or a diversion, our strategic goal is to completely delay the Tianji Empire in Tongtian Province, and buy as much time as possible for the defense of the Lingdong Province's borders. Wei Chou was stunned. Your Highness has already determined that we cannot repel the enemy in Tongtian Province? Although she didn't want to admit it, Lin Muyu still nodded and said, the Flowing Spirit Army is one of the 4 main forces of the Tianji Empire. Moreover, they have Gong Shangming, such a shrewd person, to give them advice and suggestions. It is already impossible for us to end the battle quickly. We can only seek for further strategic development, give them Tongtian Province, and then isolate them. Yes, I understand. Lin Muyu smiled. You all have to be careful. Tonight, I will also lead a 10,000-men Longdan army camp to attack. Xiao Shi will be with me. Situ-sun smiled. Princess Xi's ability is enough to lead a 10,000-men team. Your Highness is really biased. He insists on keeping the beautiful princess by his side, while we can only fight with a bunch of uncouth men. Tang Xiaoxi's face turned red. General Sun, don't talk nonsense. Lin Muyu explained. It's not completely out of selfishness. I was thinking that the key to turning the situation around is still to kill the Dragon Knights. They also have a limited number of Dragon Knights. If we kill one, there will be one less Dragon Knight. If Xiao Shi is with me, I can attack when they only have 5 or less Dragon Knights. This is my real intention. Wei Chou and Situ-sun were shocked. A look of admiration appeared on their faces. If someone else said such words, it would be arrogant, but when Lin Muyu said it, it was completely different. The Empire State Building was already collapsing. Under such circumstances, the only person who still had the courage to kill a god-tier dragon knight was probably Qin Wang, who was once one of the 4 heroes of Lanyan. Chapter 833. At night, on the vast plain of heaven-reaching city, dust was rising into the sky. Rows of cavalries of the Courage Dragon Battalion disappeared into the night. The army of 100,000 soldiers was divided into 10 groups, and all of their routes avoided the official roads and main roads as much as possible. None of them even wore armor, and only held weapons. In this way, it would not be too strenuous for them to ride on mounts, and it would be easier for them to deal with the Tianji Empire after they went into battle with light armor. At midnight, a group of light cavalry arrived at the border of Dingzhou. Under the moonlight, the person wearing a golden royal cloak was Lin Muyu. He rode on the snow-treading stallion, and held the pear-blossom spear in his hand. His body was surrounded by faint wisps of wind element power. This wind element divine power created buoyancy and greatly reduced the pressure on the snow-treading stallion. To his side, Tang Xiaoxi wore armor with a wisp of white fur on the chest, and held the national suppressing whip in her hand. We've arrived at Dingzhou. Lin Muyu looked into the distance. A golden light flashed through his eyes. Looking into the distance, he could see a city shrouded in smoke and clouds. It was Shangyuan County, the capital of Dingzhou. I didn't think they would still hold out. He sighed. He hated that he couldn't go as reinforcements. His mere 10,000 men were not even enough to fill the gaps between the teeth of the main force of the Flowing Spirit Army. Your Highness. At his side, Captain Si respectfully said, "What do we do now? Quickly reinforce Dingzhou, or?" "No, we're not going to Shangyuan County." Lin Muyu shook his head and said, "Xiangzhou County fell 2 days ago. How many men did the Tianji Empire leave behind?" Tang Xiaoxi blinked and smiled. "Not many. Only 20,000 men are guarding it. However, there are also 5 dragon riders. One of them is a dragon rider. Are we going to take down this force? What is the cultivation of the dragon rider? The book didn't say it in detail. Let's go there and talk." "Yes, all right." Xiangzhou was 300 li away from Dingzhou. If the light cavalry traveled quickly, they would arrive in about a day and night. Tang Xiaoxi said, "There is a very powerful person in the Tianji Empire's army who knows how to buy people's hearts. After each city they capture, they open the warehouses and reduce taxes. They also put up notices to pacify the people. The army and the people are not offended. It is said that from the moment they attacked Mu County, they restrained the soldiers." Lin Muyu remained silent. This was why attacking the city was more important than attacking the heart. Gong Shangming was the real opponent, and he was also destined to be their nemesis. The light cavalry galloped in the forest. Before dawn, they had already galloped 100 miles. Fortunately, the war horses of the Courage Dragon Battalion were basically tributes from the Demon Clan. These war horses from the Forest of Infinity were plump and strong, much stronger than the war horses of the Central Region. Moreover, they also had some demon power in their bodies, so their endurance and physical strength were extraordinary. It was not easy for an ordinary warhorse to gallop 100 miles a day, but this kind of warhorse from the Forest of Infinity could easily gallop 300 miles a day. Rustle, rustle. The sound of the wind rustling the leaves could be heard. Lin Muyu suddenly raised her hand and said softly, "Stop advancing." Everyone signaled to each other. The cavalry quickly stopped in the forest and no longer made any sound. "What's wrong, Your Highness?" a Chiliarch asked respectfully. "Someone is coming. It's a dragon rider." Lin Muyu looked at the sky in the distance and said calmly. Tang Xiaoxi nodded. "A dragon rider with the cultivation of the 17th heavenly passage. According to their classification, he belongs to the Saint Martial ancestor level. He is considered a middle-level dragon rider, right?" "Yes, there is only one person. He should be a scout." Lin Muyu clenched her fist. She was suddenly worried about Wei Chou and Situ Senator. They were already close to the border of Xiangzhou. To think that there was a scout from the Tianji Empire. This was enough to prove how cautious the strategists behind the Flowing Spirit Army were. She could deal with this dragon rider easily. But if Wei Chou and Situ's son met him, they would be in danger. What should we do? A look of shock flashed past the Kiliarch's face. He had seen the power of a dragon rider in the Blue Wind Harbor. He was already frightened. Don't worry. I will deal with him. Lin Muyu calmed the morale of the troops and said softly, Everyone stay where you are. Do not move without my orders. Tang Xiaoxi smiled. Be careful. Don't worry. Lin Muyu did not show off. She held her breath and waited in the forest. Only when the young god-ranked dragon rider flew through the sky did she make her move. She opened her palm and a golden light shot into the sky. It was a golden gourd vine. Once the martial soul was activated, the power could not hide. Ooh. The dragon rider only had time to shout this sentence before he was unable to move. Both he and his dragon were bound tightly by the gourd vine. Knowing that he had encountered a powerful enemy, he subconsciously let out a roar. Instantly, the azure dragon defense spin blossomed in the sky. It was like an energy whirlpool, roaring endlessly. In the blink of an eye, the gourd vine was torn apart. However, in the instant that the gourd vine was torn apart, the pear blossom spear in Lin Muyu's hand transformed into a snow-white light and pierced downwards. The tip of the spear trembled slightly, and the dragon taming spear technique's most powerful 12th form was activated. 3 spiraling forces exploded from the tip of the spear, heading straight for the dragon defense spin. Pung pung pung. 3 flaming lights instantly blossomed in the sky. Lin Muyu's casual attack had already shattered the opponent's dragon defense spin. The young dragon rider hurriedly stabbed out with his spear, but Lin Muyu's speed was even faster. With a flick of her wrist, the pear blossom spear wrapped around the other party's spear like a swimming dragon. Lin Muyu then forcefully retracted her spear. Spear lock. The dragon rider's reaction was considered fast. He hurriedly let go of his spear, pulled out his sword, and slashed at Lin Muyu. However, what welcomed him was an extremely cold punch. It was like a bright moon falling from the sky, and it landed on his shoulder at an incredible speed. 23 layers of waves violently tore his body apart. The Star Scripture's long river falling moon had actually penetrated the dragon rider's body. Pooh! The force of the punch even penetrated the green dragon's back. With just one punch, both the dragon and the man perished. Bang! A loud sound exploded in the forest, breaking many trees before stopping. Both the man and the dragon were no longer breathing. The cavalrymen of the Longdan army camp who were hidden in the forest were all stunned. They all gathered around to observe the legendary dragon rider up close, even though he was already dead. Lin Muyu quickly landed and picked up the dragon rider's spear and dragon sword. She said, "Who wants it?" Immediately, a few cavalrymen answered together and immediately split up. Once the scout is dead, it will immediately attract attention. Their people will be here in an hour. We have to hurry. Lin Muyu stretched out her hand and pointed to the east. This river is shallow. War horses can cross it. We will travel 3 miles through the river before reaching the shore. Why do we have to travel through the river? A soldier asked. Captain C smiled. Because the river can cover our horse tracks. Your Highness is the commander. You just need to follow orders and don't question them. Yes, Your Highness is wise. Lin Muyu, however, smiled bitterly at Tang Xiaoxi. She was afraid that they would soon be targeted, and trouble would come one after another. There was absolutely no way to hide. The river was extremely cold, and the war horses neighed in the cold. Amidst the surging sound of the water, Lin Muyu suddenly said, Xiaoxi, did you see that just now? See what? I only used 1 strike to break his dragon imperial spiral. Yes. Tang Xiaoxi nodded gently. I saw it. This means that you are very powerful. Hee, my Mu is the most powerful. No, I'm not asking you to praise me. I just want to say. Lin Muyu organized her thoughts and said, according to Brother Feng and Wei Chao's description, as long as a dragon knight uses the dragon imperial spiral, he can withstand the bombardment of more than 10 magic crystal cannons without breaking it. I believe that the power of my attack just now was definitely not as powerful as 10 magic crystal cannons. Why is that? Tang Xiaoxi stared blankly for a moment, then her beautiful eyes flashed with intelligence. I know, it's just like you said, dragon crystals are the natural nemesis of magic crystals, so it doesn't consume any energy to resist the explosion of a magic crystal. It's like an iron wall resisting a gust of wind, it's immovable. But it's different to resist your attack. It needs to consume his divine power as well as the physical strength of the dragon. If that's really the case, Lin Muyu smiled. Maybe the empire can be saved. What do you mean? Xiaoxi, think about it. If a group of people randomly shot the dragon imperial spiral with white diamond arrows, how long can the dragon knight last? We've always been too reliant on the magic crystal cannons, so much so that we feel that we need to use them against everyone. We have neglected the killing power of the white diamond arrows at close range. I think we can try. If the white diamond arrows also consume the dragon knight's divine power, we can probably find a way to gain the upper hand in the war. Tang Xiaoxi was very excited. That seems to be the case. Mu, you are too smart. This idea has not been tested yet. We need to wait for the next time we fight. Okay. Linghan City, the commercial and military center of the Soaring Sky Province. It was also the place where the Marquis of Tranquil Sea, Yao Yuan, was stationed. The sun rose in the east, and after the first ray of sunlight shot out, a new day arrived. A warm breeze blew over from above the forest, and it carried the fragrance of the earth and forest. However, the guards on the city were unable to carefully experience the details of this life, and they were worried about the arrival of the group of ruthless devils from the Darkstone Empire. On the bench, Yao Yuan quietly leaned against it. His injuries were very serious, and his face was pale and extremely ugly. How is the battle? Yao Yuan asked calmly. The vice commander at the side said respectfully with a dark expression. Marquis, our army has suffered repeated defeats. The Darkstone Empire's army has continuously attacked our cities and territories, slaughtered our citizens, and they've even eaten people. All the prefectures and counties have sent us letters requesting for reinforcements. Last night, their main army has already arrived 150 kilometers east of Linghan City. Yao Yuan's expression was gloomy. Is there any other news? A group of exiled angels is helping the Blackstone Empire. It is said that they are divine emissaries sent by the Western God Realm. Divine emissaries? Yao Yuan sighed. How can the gods of the upper world participate in the war of the lower world? Do you know anything else? Yes, the leader of these exiled angels is called Xiyin. It is said that she stopped the Blackstone Empire's army in Dongtian Commandery from massacring a city. Xiyin? Yao Yuan's eyes lit up. Where are these exiled angels? It is said that they stopped at Yanming Mountain 50 miles away. Yao Yuan sat up shakily. Put on my armor and head to Yanming Mountain immediately. I want to see Xiyin. Marquis, please think twice. Xiyin is an exiled angel from the Western Divine Realm. She is a demon who kills without batting an eye. Everything is just a rumor. You can't be sure. No. Yao Yuan's gaze was resolute. As long as there is hope, I will fight for it. Then all right. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.